People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting. Something elemental, something terrifying.
Batman Begins is a 2005 superhero film directed by Christopher Nolan, who co-wrote the screenplay with David S. Goyer. Based on the DC Comics character Batman, it stars Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne Batman, with Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, Tom Wilkinson, Rutger Hauer, Ken Watanabe, and Morgan Freeman in supporting roles. The film reboots the Batman film series, telling the origin story of Bruce Wayne from the death of his parents to his journey to become Batman, and his fight to stop Ra's al Ghul, Neeson, and the Scarecrow, Murphy, from plunging Gotham City into chaos.
We're undercover and on the prowl with the Dark Knight of Gotham City, as we bring you the inside story on the grittiest and most definitive Batman film to have ever hit the screen. It's official, the Bat is back. Left for dead since 1997, Batman rises from the ashes this summer amidst a wave of passion-fueled anticipation.
I was like, oh my god, there's Batman.
Join us over the next 30 minutes as we meet the man who's put the dark back into the Dark Knight.
He is really just a guy who does a lot of push-ups, makes himself extraordinary simply through sheer force of will.
Round up Batman's faithful friends and evil enemies, and strip our new mystery crime fighter of his mask.
The interesting thing with Batman is that unlike other superheroes, he's questionable.
But first, shadowing Bruce Wayne on both his worldwide and private quest to become the Caped Crusader, Batman Begins promises to be a breed apart from its predecessors.
It's pretty rare to find a recognized iconic figure that hasn't really been shown to the audience in the terms of how did that character come to be. So I felt there was this gap really in movie history.
I've never seen Batman portrayed in my mind in any way that could be said to be definitive.
This is the most interesting Batman I've ever seen because it's logical. You see why he became Batman, why he wanted to become something scary in the first place, why he chose a bat.
I personally always wanted to know why this very rich dude, Bruce Wayne, dresses up in a funky costume to fight crime.
You even watch him make the costume, what he makes it out of, and the hat and the helmet and everything.
There's an answer to everything.
The man at the helm of bringing the brooding superhero back from the dead is British director Christopher Nolan.
Okay, say action. Action.
Who harbours a lifelong fascination with the iconic Caped Crusader.
I've always been a fan of the character of Batman. I couldn't claim to be any kind of comic book expert at all, but I love the character actually just from the old TV show that I'd seen, when I was 5 years old. And when you're a 5-year-old watching the old Batman TV show, you actually take it seriously. But I think it's testament to the strengths, the mythic power of the character, that even with that kind of campy, very jokey, very kitsch representation of it, there's still something elemental about the character that translates through that. It's a character I'd always been pretty excited about.
One of the most celebrated comic book superheroes ever, Batman instantly captured the imagination of readers when he was brought to life in 1939. His popularity led to both a TV series and film in the 60s. Only they showcased a child-friendly and camp incarnation of the Caped Crusader. The 1980s saw the superhero return to his roots at the hands of comic book legend Frank Miller, with his graphic novels The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One.
I'm Batman.
With his celebrity and profile reaching new heights, it was time to give Batman the big-budget Hollywood blockbuster treatment.
Action!
Director Tim Burton masterfully added his distinctive gothic tone to the story. And with Michael Keaton as Batman and Jack Nicholson as the Joker, the movie proved a monster success, spawning a lucrative franchise. However, Burton and Keaton pulled out after 1992's Batman Returns, leaving the series to go downhill and spectacularly crash in 1997 with the universally slated Batman and Robin.
This is why Superman works alone.
First, you just hope not to mess up a really successful franchise. Truly, that's your main goal.
Mark?
Despite his best intentions, Clooney's worst fear was realized.
Okay, Marty, roll it.
Director Joel Schumacher and a dreadfully miscast film did manage to mess up a once booming franchise.
You're not sending me to the cooler.
Regardless of the disaster, to Warner Brothers it was clear that their $1.3 billion Batman empire remained its prized asset, and so it was inevitable that attempts would be made to resurrect the fallen mystery crime fighter. Following a number of false starts on different projects, one of which pitted Batman against Superman, the task to snap the lucrative superhero out of cinematic limbo fell to Christopher Nolan.
I don't think anybody wanted to see a rehash of any of the other movies. So you needed to bring in new blood. And with Chris, you've got a very smart, sharp filmmaker who has not had experience with making a movie of this size. Exactly because it was unexpected. I think that's why it was such a good idea.
Nolan's reputation as one of the most acclaimed directors of his generation had been cemented with his dark and intelligent films Insomnia and Memento.
Oh, I'm chasing this guy. No, he's chasing me.
Warner Brothers had an inkling that his moody screen sensibility, coupled with his novel approach to the Batman origin story, might just prove to be a masterstroke.
As you study the history of the comics, what you arrive at is a set of key milestones, things that in a sense are known about, Bruce Wayne's journey to becoming Batman. And then between these milestones, you have these sort of fascinating gaps, like the idea that, he leaves Gotham as a young man and travels the world for 7 years. But it's not really detailed as to what he's doing and who he meets in that period. You get these gaps that we were able to jump into and really have a bit of freedom in terms of what could have happened there.
Action!
We were very free to explore and experiment.
Relishing in the freedom to explore and experiment, Christopher Nolan was unafraid to search beyond the Hollywood casting comfort zone to find his Batman.
Storm's coming.
If you're trying to present the characteristics of Bruce Wayne that drive him to become Batman in a realistic fashion, and the whole tone of this film is intended to be one that's grounded in reality, then you're going to need an actor who can present simply through his eyes, through his expressions, the sheer self-discipline, the sheer rage and force of will that Bruce Wayne has to have to turn himself into this extraordinary figure.
Having brought bloodthirsty yuppie Patrick Bateman to life in American Psycho,
you're my lawyer, so I think you should know I've killed a lot of people,
and literally starved himself beyond recognition for The Machinist,
I haven't slept in a year.
It was British-born actor Christian Bale's fearlessness towards challenging and high-expectation roles that ultimately won Nolan over.
It was pretty arduous, because, I was coming from such a pathetic physical state. It was something that Chris was a little concerned about because I did have to screen test for Batman, and it was pretty close on the heels of finishing on The Machinist. So I was really stick thin, and I had to try and put on weight as quickly as possible so that he could convince the studio that I was somebody worth considering seriously. At the time at which I met him, he dropped 80 pounds to play this character in The Machinist. He then put on 100 pounds by the time he came to our set. Anybody with that determination and dedication to his art was clearly going to be the obvious choice to portray an obsessive.
First time he told me Christian Bale, I thought he's a bit on the thin side for Batman, but he ain't. Something happened.
So with the Batsuit proving a perfect fit for Christian Bale, the search to assemble the remaining cast members got underway. And for that, Christopher Nolan simply thought big.
We wanted to give Batman the epic treatment that the character deserves. And making an epic isn't just about building big sets, it's about building big characters, and it's about building a believable set of people that the audience will be interested in. We just went to the top people to play these roles, to get Liam Neeson to play Deconic, Michael Caine to play Alfred, and Morgan Freeman to play Lucius Fox, and Ken Watanabe as Ra's al Ghul.
And balancing the celluloid greats are some newer, fresher faces, one of which was momentarily considered for the lead.
Chris tested about, 5 or 6 guys for the role. For me at that point, I was just thrilled to have a chance to work, however briefly, with Chris Nolan. I never considered myself particularly right for Batman, and then Christian got cast, which is obvious casting, I think, and he's done a fantastic job.
Batman.
Then Chris called me up and said there's this other part in the movie, so I read that.
Dr. Crane?
I'm still asked. I played Jonathan Crane, also known as the Scarecrow. He's one of the main bad guys in the movie.
I like playing strong female characters. Rachel grew up with Bruce Wayne, and she's the type of person that has worked hard for everything in her life, and she's a real fighter. I had heard that they were possibly going to be making the movie, and then I heard that Chris Nolan was going to direct it, and it was just so exciting, and I couldn't wait to hopefully sink my teeth into it. And when I found out that I was going to be a part of it, I was just so thrilled. It was like, oh yeah, I'm in Batman.
Batman is a fascinating superhero. Is really the one I'm most interested in because he doesn't have any superpowers unless you count his extraordinary wealth. But beyond that, in physical terms, he is really just a guy who does a lot of push-ups, makes himself extraordinary simply through sheer force of will. The only thing that really prompts that journey to becoming this iconic figure is an intense rage and a burning sense of grief and injustice that he desperately has to find what to do with.
At the root of this burning sense of grief and injustice is the tragic death of his parents, which he witnessed as a young boy.
Who has put up and maintained a wall ever since that time, who does not let anybody really know who he is. His hatred and his rage is something that he carries with him always. That's genuinely there. That's in his soul.
Struggling to reconcile his rage with his need to honor his parents' legacy, Bruce sets off on a worldwide quest for answers.
Crusade means to fight injustice.
There's this huge gap in the lore of Batman. Okay, his parents get murdered when he's about 8 years old, and then suddenly he's Batman running around Gotham. What the hell happens in between?
This man goes through this incredible journey and comes out the other end with having learned something. This character I played, Henri Ducard, a citizen of many cultures, quite mysterious, recognizes something in Bruce Wayne that I feel I can help him. My character wants to defeat evil and corruption as much as he does.
Having honed both the mental and physical skills necessary to create his alter ego, Bruce prepares for his return to Gotham City. And there to meet him is his ever-loyal butler, Alfred Pennyworth.
He goes off in all these incredible adventures. He always comes back home, and there is the butler. It's a real father figure. Real father figure. You look very fashionable. Apart from the Batman has a very, very personal thing about servants and that kind of thing, He's very much against it. So his natural playing with me is of a friend rather than some subservient minion. This camaraderie between the two is a sort of core reality and humanity in the middle of the film.
It was in selecting the symbol of fear that director Christopher Nolan recognized that it should be relevant to Bruce Wayne's own psychology.
When you're sitting down trying to explain, okay, why does this guy adopt the persona of a bat? What becomes important from reading the comics is that it's all about the use of fear against those who themselves use fear. We felt that it would be very significant in the story if, in looking for a symbol of fear, Bruce Wayne would grasp at and reach for his own worst fear, which in our story is the bat.
And so with his skills harnessed and his symbol selected, Bruce turns to his late father's friend and Wayne Enterprises employee, Lucius Fox, to acquire the all-important tools to finally become Batman.
Here we are.
around for quite a while, and he knows this guy he knows Bruce from way back. It's kind of interesting to see him come back as a grown-up. Now has purpose.
This one is truly about Bruce Wayne and Batman. This is not a movie that's about the villains. The interesting thing with Batman is that unlike other superheroes, he's questionable, predictable. He's so volatile. You could see he could very easily cross that line and become the very thing that he's trying to fight.
Driven by the same need to bring justice to Gotham City is Assistant District Attorney Rachel Dawes, Bruce's closest childhood friend.
I heard you. The voice of reason at times for Bruce.
What chance does Gotham have when the good people do nothing?
Because she's, trying to clean up the criminals of the city and make it a better place. She kind of brings Batman into, where it all is happening.
Effectively fabricating the epic yet plausible world in which Batman's story unfolds was only made possible thanks to Christopher Nolan's tireless and continued drive for authenticity, highlighted by his aversion to the computer-generated in favor of the real.
It's a heightened reality, but you know what everything's made of. There's a texture to things that you can get your teeth into, really, and you can believe in these worlds.
I'm just talking to the producer, and I said, I saw it. I said, there was a marvelous CGI image of Batman on the top of a skyscraper. And the helicopter, I said, goes right round the whole of Chicago. I said, that's the best CGI I've ever seen. And she said, that was the stunt double. He was strapped to the top of the skyscraper. And that was a real man. And that's what this movie is about. When you see it, it's real.
The day that I saw the Batmobile for the first time and heard it come on and the tires, and it was just like, oh my God, this is so cool.
And all the while, amidst the Batmobile's menacing roars and Gotham's towering sets, Christopher Nolan appeared seemingly unfazed by the enormity of his spectacular undertaking.
He's the best style of director because he doesn't tell you a lot. He lets you get on with it, and if it's wandering a little bit off the path, he can put you back with one sentence.
Pulling back, slowly, gently.
That's what I like in directors. I don't want to say too much. I put the price down if I make another one.
What I love about him, he's right beside the camera when he's shooting a scene. He's not in some back room watching a bank of monitors, that a lot of directors favor. And we all love that as actors, a director who's just really concentrating on you.
Action. If I hadn't been scared, they would still be alive.
One thing that I was a little concerned about looking at the schedule for Batman, which was 7 months of photography, which is not something I've ever experienced, was thinking, oh my God, is this going to be such a juggernaut that it's going to be really impersonal? I think the real saving grace there was the way that Chris handled that, because he approached it much more like an independent movie.
Okay, say action. Action.
Batman Begins is a wonderfully rare result of Hollywood's refusal to play it safe in the predictable world of the blockbuster. Saved by a fresh and inspired vision at the hands of Christopher Nolan and a dark and intense performance courtesy of Christian Bale, Batman has indeed been resurrected.
This does not look like another director who is just banging out another mega blockbuster movie. This looks like something that people care a great deal about and is very special.
All of the most interesting, epic, Hollywood entertainments that I saw when I was a kid had actually very realistic textures. I felt like it had been a very long time since I saw a film like that, so I was very excited to try and make one of these films.
Excuse me. If you were going to be a real man and become Batman, what are you, nuts? And then you see the way he does it, Christopher and Christian Bale. It's wonderful.
I would hope that we'll be sitting here in a few years' time, talking about, the number 2.
Cobb. It was Cobb. Look, we need to go. We need to tell
Rest. Gordon knows. Gotham needs you.
And you serve Gotham?
I serve justice. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. Trouble?
Nothing I can't handle.
He knows who was at the docks.
He won't talk.
He'll talk to me. Who was with Falcone at the docks?
I don't know, I swear to God.
Swear to me.
What in God's name are you?
I'm Batman. Who was with Falcone at the docks?
Joe murdered my parents, and they deserve...
Don't pretend you wanted to do this for them.
Happy birthday, Bruce.
Oh, Mr. Earl. Good of you to come.
Not everybody thought you'd make it this far.
Sorry to disappoint. Who was with Falcone at the docks?
I don't know, I swear to God. Swear to me!
I first became interested in taking on Batman when I heard that Warner Brothers was looking to renew and reinvent the franchise. I'd made my last film at Warner Brothers, so I was able to go to them and explain to them the way I saw the Batman franchise being interestingly reinvented. From the beginning, my interest was in taking on a superhero story but treating it in a realistic fashion. I've always been a big fan of the character, but I am by no means any kind of comic book expert. I felt I needed a writer on the project who really knew the character inside out, really knew the comic world.
Chris's agent rang me up one day. I'd always wanted to write a Batman movie. I remember telling my mother when I was a kid that I was going to go to Hollywood one day and do a Batman film. And in a way, I'd been waiting my whole life for this call.
David, unfortunately at that time, said he couldn't possibly write the script because he only had 8 or 9 weeks until he was going to go off to direct.
I said, if I did do it, this is what I would do, and you can just have my ideas for free. And I talked for about an hour and spitballed a large amount of what the film is. And Chris said, wow, that sounds great. He went away again for a few more days. I got a call again saying, you have to do this, you have to do this.
I guess he's just such a big fan of the character, he couldn't resist carving out the time to just come on board and work out the story with me and then write the first draft.
One of the ironies of this film is it's this massive, massive movie. But the way that the film was created were in sort of very humble settings, so to speak.
David and I would meet at my house, out the back of my garage, in my office, and throw ideas around and really start working out the major beats.
It was clear to me that if they were going to restart the Batman franchise, something very dramatic would have to be done, something very different. In my opinion, we had to go backwards and tell Batman's origin story.
The origin story had never been addressed on film, or really even in the comics. That is to say, there isn't really a single definitive account of the journey of Bruce Wayne into Batman. David Goyer and myself drew very heavily on this great history of this character. It's these key events in Bruce Wayne's life that we know of, and then a lot of very interesting gaps that we were able to interpret ourselves, and those we took to be the most important elements of what makes Batman the great legend that he is. As David was writing his first draft and we were fully working out the story, I actually brought on Nathan Crowley, my designer, and moved him into the garage to start working on the key design elements.
It was in August in LA in the garage with the washing machines, so we had to take the day off when the cleaner came around because they'd leave the dryers on and get way too hot.
It's a really interesting way to work because we, would feed each other information, and Nathan would say, "Oh, I have an interesting idea," and then Chris and I would put that into the story, or vice versa.
By working that way, having your production designer in one room and your co-writer in another, you've really got this, fantastic symbiotic thing going on that's going to give you really great inspiration, which is what happened.
It was very important to me that nobody see anything of what we were doing until it was finished, until we were ready to show different elements.
We are used to working on films where you're fighting to let people know about your film. On this, we were fighting to, keep it all under wraps.
We had a fake name for the project that Chris came up with called The Intimidation Game, and all the documents, all the contracts, the scripts, things like that were The Intimidation Game.
It had nothing to do with the title of the film, but people ended up thinking it was the title of the film, which was all a little bit strange.
After we finished the script, no photocopies were made for the executives at Warner Brothers. They came to Chris's house and sat in that same garage. They brought in some couches and read the script there.
That initial stage where you're getting to really let your imagination run free and really explore ideas is one of the most fun parts of the filmmaking process. You're really trying to think and design and dream on the grandest scale imaginable. It was important for me in the case of this project to figure out who was going to be putting that cowl on before we really nailed down the script.
There are a lot of people that would make a good Batman, or there are a lot of people that would make for a good Bruce Wayne, but we couldn't find a lot of people that we thought could do both. The first half of our film takes place before Bruce puts on the costume for the first time. It was important to us that the audience be really invested in Bruce Wayne and not just marking time anytime he was on screen until he would put on the cape and the cowl.
Christian was the first actor I met with, actually. And it was clear to me, looking into his eyes, that this is somebody who can make you believe in the possibility of somebody devoting their life to something this extreme. Christian was driven enough to want to move over the project that he was prepared to take a lot of things on trust in terms of what I was intending to do with the project. Because when I first met him, the script hadn't been written yet.
The image that I had gotten from Chris was that he was a far more dangerous and volatile character than I'd seen him played before.
Christian had a very controlled and specific approach to how he wanted to portray the aggression of this character, the animal-like quality. He talked a lot about having Batman crouching in the shadows, and he's constantly sort of crouched on railings or the sides of buildings, very much the way he is in the comics.
You just couldn't pull it off properly unless you became a beast when you were inside of that suit.
When I first met Christian, he was extraordinarily thin, having lost an enormous amount of weight for The Machinist, which he was about to go off and shoot.
He did call me and say, well, you know, how do you look right now? You know, like, how am I going to seriously be able to suggest to Warner Brothers that you could play Batman ever if, you know, you're that skinny?
He then proceeded to put on a lot of weight in muscle terms and really try and bulk up, because I had impressed upon him the idea that for Bruce Wayne to really fill that suit, he was going to have to be very, very large.
I was just stuffing my face all day long and lifting heavy weights and eating more, and eventually went up to like 220 pounds.
I hadn't met Christian, and I was expecting to meet this bag of bones. And I went, oh my God.
I just listened to what he said about get as big as you possibly can. So that's what I did, you know? But I was kind of like a bear. I wasn't really like a martial arts, you know, guy all lean and ripped and everything like that.
I had to very sort of gently suggest to him that he you know, cut down a bit.
I could see the look on Chris's face, you know? He looked at me and it was like, oh, Christ, you know, what has this guy done?
There was a moment where he was really big and we were thinking, God, is he gonna fit the bat suit? Is it, you know, how is this gonna work?
It was a moment of panic where I realized, oh, crap, you know? I took Chris at his exact word about get as big as you can, but he didn't really think I was gonna get that big. A number of the crew I'd worked with on previous movies, they looked at me and they were like, bloody hell, Chris, what are we doing here? Fat Man or Batman? And so I realized, okay, that's not what he had meant. So I had to then try and lose a lot of weight.
We worked on his stamina and built his muscle tone so we could bring his body back up to being what it needed to be for Batman. And Christian knew anyway, because he was such a focused guy. He knew his own body.
Very nice.
Christian showed extraordinary levels of self-discipline and dedication to the role to be able to do that. A lot of actors, when you start working with them, they'll say they're going to lose a bit of weight for the part or whatever, and the wardrobe people will kind of roll their eyes and go, yeah, sure, because they very often don't. And I had to warn the wardrobe people on this film that he was actually going to do what he said he was going to do.
It really was. It was a very tight schedule, but I just about managed it before we started filming.
I think the closest to what I saw for Batman that I had seen in another film was probably the Dick Donner Superman film from 1978. And one of the things that made that film so epic was the great casting.
I felt that Batman deserved a similarly epic treatment, and so we decided to go for the best actors and the best stars possible, so the principals are all fleshed out with these wonderful supporting roles. I mean, it's just a spectacular cast around Christian.
Haven't given up on me yet. Never.
It's essential that Alfred is a credible father figure because he is the person who raises Bruce Wayne.
In the Civil War, your great-great-grandfather was involved in the Underground Railroad, secretly transporting freed slaves to the north. And I suspect he found these cabins handy.
Casting Michael Caine in this role allows us to create a really wonderfully rounded character who really can be a true father, surrogate father to Bruce Wayne. Liam Neeson plays Ducard, who is this mentor to Bruce. He essentially teaches Bruce all kinds of techniques of martial arts and so forth, but I think he also offers him a level of guidance, and at a time when Bruce is really looking for answers.
What's great about Liam is Liam ultimately plays one of the villains, and he's never played a villain before. And he always plays these sort of fatherly, avuncular, mentor-like characters, which he does need to play in this film. But when he turns, he really turns. We first talked about the character of Lucius Fox. I said to Chris, well, the only person that can play this is Morgan Freeman.
We felt it was important to connect Bruce's assembling of the tools to become Batman, and Lucius Fox helps him in his quest to become Batman without ever knowing exactly what Bruce's quest is. He knows there's something going on, but there's a sort of interesting unspoken understanding between the two men.
Gary Oldman was an idea that Chris had, and he doesn't seem like the obvious choice given some of the roles he's played.
I think Gary Oldman has never really played such a wholesome character. He's played a lot of bad guys, Gary, but he is a chameleon, and he inhabits the role of Gordon.
The really cool thing about Gary Oldman's performance in Batman Begins is that if you look at Frank Miller's Batman Year One and the depiction of Gordon in that comic, that's exactly what Gary did. I look at Gary in the movie and I don't even think of him as Gary Oldman. He just seems like Gordon.
It was important for us to have a person who was close to Bruce from childhood, knew him before all of these things went wrong.
Rachel, who's played by Katie Holmes, is a very strong character in her own right, and she's not at all the damsel in distress.
What these great actors bring is a sense of three-dimensional reality, the sense of a real world in which Batman and Bruce Wayne is functioning. And it's very satisfying to look at the finished product and realize how much of it does stem absolutely directly from those first months where it was just us on our own throwing ideas around.
The project was incredibly secretive. At the beginning, for a couple of months, I couldn't even reveal that I was working on it. And I'm a big comic book reader, and there's a local comic shop that I frequent. And I went in one day, and I bought, 6 or 7, Batman graphic novels, things like that. And my friend that runs the comic book shop said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Why are you buying so many Batman graphic novels and comic books?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just interested." And he said, No, there's something's up. "Are you writing the new Batman movie?" And I said, No. And he said, "You're writing the new Batman movie, aren't you?" "You are." No. It wasn't until they revealed maybe 6 weeks later that he said, "I knew it. I knew you were." Chris and I would take walks from time to time if we felt like going on a break, and we would go to the Bat Cave where, Adam West and Burt Ward would be, flying out with their Batmobile. And then we would also spend time frequently working at a local diner. We would take breaks for lunch, and we would go there almost every day. Chris would order the exact same thing every time, which was an omelet with avocado, a side of bacon, and cream cheese. And we would work there. And I remember it was crazy because at one point someone sent me a link to something on the internet, and some fan had seen us at this diner, and had heard that we were working on the Batman film and said, oh my God, you know, Nolan and Goyer were there at the diner. And I've seen them more than once, and they're clearly working out the story for the new Batman film. So if anyone's in the vicinity, see if you can walk by the table and pick up any story points or something like that. It was very funny to read about something like that.
What we have here is one of the proof of concept shots that we had to create to demonstrate that we could do the things that we claimed we were going to be able to do. We managed to sneak in one day and we said, okay, well, we'll get this shot and then we'll make our own digital version of Christian in the Bat costume. And what you see here is the finished result of our test. This is our A Batman and then B version of Batman. 3 out of the 4 people that we asked would pick the B version and say that this was the live-action Batman. This, in fact, is the digital Batman. You're looking at the digital Batman here. It's not entirely perfect. There are things that if you know what you're looking for, you can tell that it's a digital Batman. And to be fair, Chris managed to spot it. He was able to discern which was the digital Batman, which was the real Batman. Obviously, you would never actually do this shot with a digital stunt double because you can get the actor to walk through the set. But I think this went a long way to saying, yes, we can make something that looks real. We can make it a pretty good match.
We wanted the look of Gotham to have a recognizable texture, like a sort of New York on steroids.
Between set builds, miniatures, locations, we can create a world.
We have a true working set that's on the scale of a real city.
The guys that we've got here have managed to build what they've built in 100 days.
Had a whole river flowing through it and waterfalls. Like on the 5th day, I'd find a different section of the set.
This film is a designer's dream, really.
The overall tone and feel of the film is reality, but heightened reality. What does a comic suggest to you in your mind? That's the world of Gotham we're actually trying to create.
You kind of realised that I needed to start designing key elements of the film to help him as he wrote.
We started to develop the look of Gotham in parallel with the script development. What I wanted to do was to build up the world of Gotham as a sort of exaggerated contemporary New York.
We've taken trips to New York. Gotham has always been based on New York, and to Chicago. And we've been looking at places like the old Kowloon City in Hong Kong. And we're really looking around how we were going to go about designing a city. This is a model of what really are the slums of Gotham that I made myself in Chris's garage. Obviously, we pretty much went all the way to the roof.
Having Nathan in the garage, sticking models together and just coming up with the look of the film, it just worked amazingly well, and it sort of advanced our process.
Visual effects are very important for being able to help create the environment of Gotham City. Chris wanted a degree of realism which he felt he hadn't seen before in visual effects work. He really wanted to show just what a monstrously overwhelming place Gotham City is. The description in the script was that Bruce looks out of the window of his executive jet and he sees the spires of Gotham catching the first gold of dawn as the sun rises. This is a key shot for us in establishing our ability to create photorealistic landscapes for the film. We've added piers and jetties. We've added things like smoke plumes. We've got all the boats are now in the shot. And all of this was actually sourced from reality.
You sort of essentially build buildings in 3D, but you map photographs onto them. So you get the shape from 3D modeling, and then you get the photographic reality from photos taken actually in Chicago. We shot something maybe like that's close to 1 million photographs on this show. Sort of gathering all the possible photographic sources from Chicago we could, day and night, rain, sun, snow, the whole thing.
And so what we've got here is an aerial plate, and basically what the camera's doing is it's supposed to be following the monorail train round the corner, heading towards Wayne Tower, which is going to be down at the end of the street here. The streets had to be completely clear, so the city has a ghostly look to it. We're going to need to make this look like this whole thing is alive. Here's our finished shot, which follows the monorail train. We've added in Wayne Tower down at the end of the street. All the vehicles you see driving across the bridges and down the road there, these are all digitally created. There was a point at which we achieved a certain standard of realism on this shot. That made Chris feel that it was possible to produce photoreal cityscapes that would fit in with the rest of the photography of Chicago and the big Gotham City sets.
In terms of looking at Wayne Manor, we've decided to represent the way the audience sees the wealth of the Wayne family, which is very important to our story.
Took quite a fall, didn't we, Master Bruce?
And why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up.
We've chosen an approach to design that gets away from the sort of simple wood paneling and suits of armor, that kind of thing that's become very familiar to audiences as a portrayal of money. We want to show to them in a fresh way, and so there is a slightly different emphasis on the look of the place and the feel of the place than we've felt before.
After seeing about 20 manor houses, we came across Mentmore, which sits about an hour and a half north of London. And what's particular about this place is it has a white interior, which suddenly occurred to us that because he returns some years later after his parents' death, we could really play the white interior as a mausoleum, like the place has been closed up. And suddenly that sparked off all these ideas. Well, we could have everything draped and shrouded and all the carpets rolled up and the white marble floor exposed and just this really unfriendly place.
In imagining the Batcave, we set out to look at the origin myth as it's been portrayed in the comic book, and we were very drawn to the notion of existing caverns underneath Wayne Manor rather than something that's constructed.
Because it's Batman Begins, we wanted to explain who dug the Batcave, how does that work, how does he pour 500 million tons of concrete in in secret? We really wanted to explain that the Batcave isn't a man-made place. It sits under Wayne Manor, and it's a cave.
Gradually, over the course of the film, we start to build up the idea of the larger world of Batman and the larger world of the Batcave.
The Batcave was on the H stage at Shepperton Studios, and that was sort of the next garage.
The Batcave starts with rigging, then we go into wood, and then we cast these sheets, thousands of sheets. These are cast off existing rocks. Up above, you'll see those arches up there. They're basically the foundations of Wayne Manor. And we're saying this was an underground lake that's drained out. So we're actually building a river that runs through here. And slowly but surely, we end up with a Batcave.
We actually ended up flooding the whole stage because it was just easier rather than building self-contained tanks. Chris was a little bit dubious about flooding the stage, but I think after he saw the immensity of the water we put into it, he realised it was probably the best thing to do. It was an element where you got lots of reflections and twinkles. That, it was a dark set, and that just brought it out and made it a living cave, really.
The Batcave is a very realistic environment, and so my goal was to try to light it in a realistic way and keep that believability going. We're dealing with black walls, somewhat reflective walls, which helps quite a bit. And then we're dealing with Batman in a matte black costume. So you have to try to figure out exactly how you're going to separate one from the other. Luckily, working with my gaffer, Perry Evans, we started to crack it a little bit and figure out exactly how we were going to bring some of the light into the Batcave without seeing them, because there's a roof over much of the Batcave, and we have to find a way to sneak the light in. And then specifically lighting the first scene that Bruce Wayne sees the Batcave.
In order to master your fear, you kind of have to dive into it. Bruce decides that in order to become Batman, he's going to immerse himself in the bats beneath Wayne Manor, that he's going to have to be comfortable with that before he can really become Batman.
We knew we were going to have to do digital bat shots. We did an early on test trying to use real bats to see how they would play, but they tend to, not be very cooperative. I think one day of shooting with those convinced everybody that we're going to go digital with the bats.
And then seeing bats swarm in all over you.
We start from reality, of course. So we actually digitally scanned some dead bats to get their full-on shape, recreate those in 3D, paint them up, texture them to make them look like real bats. In order that we can have bats fly around in there, what we actually did, we used a thing called a LiDAR scanner. It's basically a laser that sweeps across the surface of objects. And it's used by the military and also used in visual effects all the time now. And it records the three-dimensional shape of the environment. So by doing this, we can basically build a 3D version of the set. And then we can use that to sort of have the bats avoid objects and have them correspond to real objects as you photograph the plate as well. I think these days visual effects has sort of expanded its role storytelling-wise. Now you can do things that you couldn't do before. You can do them seamlessly, and you can do them fairly cost-effectively. And I think once you saw where we could go with that, you realized, yes, avoiding all that back guano is definitely the way to go.
We always knew we had to build a majority of the Narrows as a set because it's something we couldn't find. So we are building a section of the Narrows for real in this giant airship hangar.
When we first started looking at Cardington, I think that there was probably a certain amount of skepticism from everybody, really, because it wasn't a ready-made stage by any means. It actually took us 10 months from the moment we took over that place to the moment where we were able to shoot in there.
When you are in Gotham and Cardington, you think that you are in a major city because it's so vast. It's almost like a limitless set. Far and away the largest stage that I've ever worked in.
It's like putting 8 of the largest LA sound stages in one building.
We built a model of the hangar so that we could make sure that what we were designing would fit within the hangar and would work within the space. Big advantage here, and what I think the designer and director liked, was the height that we've got. We've basically got 160-foot height.
The set is a sort of complex series of areas. So you'll turn a corner and you're in the Narrows, and you'll turn another corner, you're on a Gotham street. And then, the Gotham street gives background to the Narrows. So it all becomes a giant set build.
We've managed to build a city, an actual freeway, a borough, and then a downtown area, all in the same building.
Basically, we're incorporating 2 parts of Gotham City, the Narrows. As it sounds, it's a very narrow part of the set, and the buildings are all overhanging, lots of balconies. It's quite a tight space to work in. And then the second part of the set, which is beyond us, further down the hangar, is really the main drag of Gotham. Main drag will have a lot of traffic in. We're looking at running, maybe 50-odd cars through the set. And then under the structure itself of the hangar, we've got a full freeway. So that's 3 lanes of traffic running the entire length of the hangar. There's quite a lot of stuff involved with that. Obviously, we've got to work out all the road markings. The traffic lights are all wired up. A lot of the street dressing that were brought in, we actually bought in America and had it shipped across. As part of the design of the set, we've had to lay in cabling under the ground so that we can get all our steam effects up through the manhole covers and the drains. So there's a lot of work.
To me, it really is the space that looks the most like a real city night exterior, and yet we lit every inch of it from scratch.
Because we had this fantastic indoor space, we were able to shoot during the day and make it look like night.
The best approach to lighting Cardington was from the inside out.
We put different color gels on the windows, we hung things inside the windows, and we brought it to a place where I think it really looks like a real city. So I'm quite proud of the way that the Narrows came out on film.
Action. These sets are just phenomenal, that we've built this entire city of Gotham, within this vast hangar here. It's a big production, but with such fine attention to detail.
It just gives the film a whole scope that I don't think it would have had if we were limited to a regular-sized stage.
Everything we did in that garage is in this film, so that was really, really great.
And action. Turn it over. Sorry, just starting back over. Action! 3, 2, 1, go! Action. Okay, Buster. Yeah, ready. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Everything's good? Leave the stage, get me. 13, 14, 15. No sensation at all. Okay, get out.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
For Bruce Wayne's story to be sufficiently believable, sufficiently epic, I felt it was very necessary in the early stages of the film to have Bruce Wayne disappear, as indeed in the history of the comic books, it's clear that he disappears for about 7 years or so.
Ra's al Ghul.
That, to me, is a fascinating concept, the idea of this heroic figure who, as a very flawed character, a very human character, leaves the place that he's ultimately to return to and travels and learns and then returns as a changed person.
If I hadn't been scared, they would still be alive.
And do you still feel responsible?
My anger outweighs my guilt.
Come.
Hello there. Back to one. We'll get safety on that.
We knew one of the biggest set pieces of the whole movie had to involve Bruce prior to becoming Batman, and it had to be an absolutely massive and thrilling sequence. And we figured if we could sort of get the audience invested in Bruce in that way, then it wouldn't matter whether or not he had the cape and cowl on.
You'll turn back. Sure thing. You'll go back.
Why don't you look through the camera? Because what we'll do is we'll cheat it. We'll cut. And I'll have the other side as well. Very good. I'll walk down that steep slope.
We were determined not to have this film feel like it had been filmed on a lot, on a back lot, on a studio lot. We wanted there to be locations that would expand it, that would make the playing field and the canvas feel larger.
He meets his rival, we obviously don't understand that till the end of the film, in a Bhutanese monastery. So we wanted to place this monastery and the village he goes through on the way to the monastery in a really dramatic landscape. Obviously, Bhutan's in the Himalayas, and we couldn't go there. So we were looking for a landscape you can film in above the tree line that isn't covered in snow or it can't access, which is always the big problem. And preferably, we have a frozen lake and a glacier. You're looking for glaciers that sit below 3,000 feet, which is, there ain't many. I think there's only one in British Columbia, so we didn't want to go that far. So Iceland, we went to Iceland, and there you go, sea level, glacier, mountains, no trees, rocky landscape, felt like the Himalayas. So we built a village on the edge of a glacier, and we built the front doors of the monastery on just around the corner. We were there from January till March building it. You know, it's obviously in this winter, so there's very little light. Lots of storms, lots of rain. The monastery is being built as a miniature, and we're going to put that in behind the front doors, so it's a combination of elements.
The power of movies, you know, we can kind of go anywhere and sort of tame it for our use. It was strange to be in a section of the world where there wasn't a tree and there wasn't the sound of a bird. It was kind of like a gorgeous Beckett wasteland, you know. It was beautifully dangerous. He was stronger than your father.
You didn't know my father.
I know the rage that drives you. That impossible anger strangling your grief until the memory of your loved one is just poison in your veins.
My thinking about starting in Iceland was I needed a frozen lake and it was going to be gone by the end of February, so we had to start.
It wasn't really so much Chris changing the schedule as Mother Nature, really, just because he had found this beautiful lake right beneath this stunning glacier. We were meant to have a couple of days to be able to rehearse and go through the sword fight. And, you know, they called us and said, right, that's it, you know, no rehearsals. Let's just go straight to it. We got to film it because we don't know how long this is going to last, because it could thaw out any day.
You know how to fight 6 men. We can teach you how to engage 600.
And lucky that we did it, because while we were filming that scene, we would hear these loud cracks in the ice, and everybody would have to stand dead still, you know, and they would call a few people off the ice and say, okay, you know, now it's only good to have 5 people out on the ice and no more than that. And gradually the whole thing was falling apart as we filmed.
Always mind your surroundings. Every so often, between setups, we'd see ice crumbling away at the head of this glacier and bits of rock and muck falling off, that you knew this thing was a big living force that was moving towards you. Anger does not change the fact that your father failed to act.
From my standpoint, really didn't involve that much. I mean, it was a handheld camera, a steady cam. We did one shot where I'm sitting on a sled and they scooted me across the ice to get a shot, which is in the movie. And so it was a really pretty low-tech way of filming.
We were able to get, I think, 33 setups in one day or something and just hammer through it, very much in the style of a small film. In a sense, that was a part of the film the most similar to films I'd made in the past.
Yield. You haven't beaten me. You've sacrificed sure footing for a killing stroke.
By the next day, it was pretty much just a lake again. And I like that, actually. You know, it's nice sometimes to kind of surprise yourself with the beginning and not feel completely ready. You know, sometimes there's a benefit, I find myself, to just getting started and jumping in.
We wanted to go back out again, but we couldn't. And so we faked it a little bit after that. But all the really wide, beautiful stuff we got done on the day that we were supposed to prep.
Action!
I think every movie at some point has a location or a set that is going to be a nightmare no matter what happens. And you have to sort of suffer through that nightmare because it's something that the movie demands and has to be done. On this one, it was Iceland.
Let's go for our final checks, please, and let's stand by to shoot.
One of the first moments that Chris and I talked about in the film was when Bruce Wayne is climbing his way up to Ra's al Ghul's temple, and he's covered in ice and bleeding and has to drag his battered body into this smoky grand temple at the top of the world.
Okay, folks, everyone here has to come down the hill now, please, without fail. Everyone, please.
Our first day shooting that, we got 60-mile-an-hour winds and pouring rain and just really, really rough weather conditions. And instead of doing this crane shot that Chris and I had talked about doing at the bottom of the village, we ended up throwing the camera on my shoulder, kind of, you know, hunkering down and walking up the hill in the blowing rain and getting as much as we could before we had to pull the plug and get out of there.
3, take 1. Okay, take the train, please.
Iceland should have a lot more snow, but it's like anything. We have to cater for any how the weather changes.
Start the snow.
Got various types of snow. We're actually bringing snow and ice to Iceland. Rain effects, well, we're leaving that to God at the moment.
Bruce's climb up the mountain. When he goes up, walks through the village, the guy tells him to turn back. That was a huge challenge, and it was more a challenge of stamina than anything else. It was freezing cold, the wind was roaring, and it was just miserable, quite frankly. And I think that the fact that we all got through that meant that we knew we were in a good place to continue.
Filming in Iceland, the first week of production was like being thrown into combat. I had a completely new crew, an all-English crew that I'd never worked with before, who did a fabulous job, but we were all kind of thrown into the mud, wind, ice, rain, hail, whatever was hitting us there, and had to work out all the bugs of not only our communication, but filming the movie and doing some crucial scenes.
The other issue we had out there, of course, was we had to do Ducard and Wayne sliding down the ice and off the cliff edge, again, which we wanted to do for real. So we built an ice slide the week previously to the crew going out there.
We took 2 containers of snow out there as a backup and ended up using the whole lot. We covered half the mountain in artificial snow, and we were exhausted by the end of that week.
In terms of the stunt, we'd rehearsed, it was all pre-rigged, ready to go so that we don't keep the crew waiting. And then on the day you're standing there thinking, I hope this works.
And the guys who were part of the stunt team went out to Iceland while we were filming another sequence. They would rig it all, get the timing, the wire lengths and everything. And then me and Mark would step in on the day, do a couple of rehearsals, and then the tape rolled.
Buster, just remember that the hand you're digging in with, that is supposedly taking the weight of both you and the guy you're holding, so a real stop on that, really hanging from that gauntlet. Roll cameras, please. Okay, here we go, guys. Good luck, everyone. 3, 2, 1, action! Cut there. Okay, if you want to change your lens, Wally, Chris is saying, we'll keep the same lens on here, we're going to do the drop down again.
When we just had to rely on the wire stopping us again. It's back to the trust again. You've got to rely on the gents who are setting up the wires.
And it's all the background guys as well.
It's all the guys behind the scenes that you've really got to put your trust in.
Let's roll cameras, please.
It looks dangerous. It is dangerous because anything could go wrong. But it is safe. The cable that's holding those guys could hold 25 times more weight than those guys are on. The thing that's in the ground is 75 times more deep than it has to be. The compounding of all the specs to a degree where it's virtually impossible, although an accident could happen anytime. So yes, it's very scary.
Cut. You guys okay? Mark okay? Thumbs up. Excellent.
We needed one single shot, which is sliding with them down the ridge over the edge to be able to tip down to see the ravine. In pre-production, Chris and I talked about it, and we both really wanted to get a realistic over-the-edge shot and not do it CGI, not do it blue screen back on the stage so you could really get the feel that you're there. And I think we were able to accomplish it, but that meant bringing this techno crane to the top of the mountain, and it was really the best way to get it. So it was the best tool for the job. It wasn't just a toy, that we made the guys bring up there. And then Chris also really wanted to get in there with them with a handheld camera and be right in with them as they slid down the hill. And so we took our usual low-tech approach to it to test it and to see really if it was going to be fast enough.
Too slow.
And also to get an idea of how much we were going to be able to shoot on location and how much we would leave behind to shoot on a set piece that we were going to build months and months later.
What you're looking at is he's just sort of sliding towards a cliff edge. Yeah. So you're going down and then you grab him with your right hand. Let's go with your turn your body around.
Like that. So on this one, we'll just get the lead into that. The horizontal brake line.
There's a great spirit that comes out of that in accomplishing what we were able to accomplish there. And I think that the attitude that Chris and I took towards it was, let's just go in there and get what we can and just get all that we can and come out of there alive with great footage.
Even further back. The cheetah this way.
I wasn't worried about starting with this outdoor, this sort of extreme location.
Action!
The crew and the cast and so forth came through with flying colours. That gave me a very high degree of confidence about how they were going to approach the rest of this rather large film.
That's the thing, to stand up on that glacier and say, you know what, we decided to do this, we did it, and it's fantastic. Those kind of moments on movies are hard to forget, and be standing in the middle of it and going, yeah, baby. That's what it's all about.
Death doesn't wait for you to be ready. I am going to stop you. You never did learn to mind your surroundings.
The very first time that I met with Chris after him asking me to play the role, he had said, you know, he really wanted me to be involved in the fighting technique so that it kind of looked organic and looked like something that I had invented myself.
I wanted to take it back to a grubbier place. A place where you feel the punches a bit more and you're actually a bit more concerned about the violence on screen.
Action.
There's been a lot of very, well, I think excessive use of, you know, wire work and martial arts and everything, to the point where violence loses its threat because it's become a bit dance-like, and we've become sort of comfortable watching it in that way.
You know, if you're in a fight situation, if Batman's got someone behind him and he can turn around and knock him out, headbutt him, why not? Why do a triple spin kick, double loop, you know, why not just knock him out?
We were looking for something that, when Batman threw a punch or a kick, it went through the person like a raging bull. Once we started along those lines, one of the stuntmen we had on the film, Buster Reeves, who's a jiu-jitsu world champion and extremely talented in martial arts, mentioned to Dave Forman about a new martial arts system called Casey, or Casey Fighting Method. Casey means from the heart, and it's also the nickname for the two founders of KFM, Husto and Andy Norman.
Andy and Husto, they developed Casey over 20 years. Action. They analysed tapes, they watched moves, all the different martial arts forms to develop it, put it together. And it's absolutely fantastic.
Take it away, boys. Throughout all the fighting movies, we've seen the traditional taekwondo, Muay Thai, the karate. We've seen all that, but we hadn't seen KFM. In terms of martial arts, like Wushu has been created over hundreds of years. This is very, very new, and it's still evolving. It's very much about being mentally aware of your environment, mentally aware of how people behave and respond to actions and reactions. It's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to kill this man, or do you want to maim him? And that comes from you as a person. So, you know, it is a lethal art.
It's very practical. I mean, these guys actually train often in nightclubs and things, and they will smoke up the room, and it's all about using what's available and grabbing that ashtray and smacking somebody with it, or being able to have a fight with somebody while sitting next to them. And it's a really great fighting style.
And we felt that was exactly what we wanted for Batman. Someone who, if he feels like he's going to headbutt you, that's what he does. It's just an emotional response.
Had to kind of tame it down a bit, and it's to adapt their system into Dave Forman's choreography.
And action. And because it's so tight and a tight fighting style, I had to adapt to make the moves bigger. So if I was throwing a punch to the face, I would just make that bigger. I would just, make the circle bigger. The demonstration you just saw, I don't think you could actually break that down unless you saw that in slow motion. You couldn't quite see what was happening there, but the boys were actually breaking down each bone as they went up from the legs to the head. So it is something that you need a lot of control on, and so we move very, very slowly, and we build up layers till we feel very, very comfortable with it. Wonderful. Well done, boys.
Christian has unbelievable stamina. I've seen his workload every day. And if he does get 2 hours off in the morning, he has to rehearse a fight. It's not your fault. It's our father's.
We had 16 fights in the movie for Christian to get through. Because he had such a heavy workload, we did a lot of blocking of the fights with stunt guys and just liaising with Chris Nolan on tape. Then we'd bring Christian in, put the acting element into the fight and perhaps tweak a few bits that felt character-wise like they should change. And I would make the changes. And then when we'd get on set, it'd all change again. In terms of the fights, Christian learnt every single fight. He did every single fight. The Casey fighting was very close quarters, so it was a very dangerous art. The hits were very direct to very dangerous parts of the body, so we had to be very, very careful as not to injure our actors, or our stuntmen, of course. A lot of the hits were like 2-3 inches away from the target, so every time.
Absolutely respect the stuntmen. This is what they do, and they can obviously do any of it in a vastly superior way to what I can do. But I always like to try it, And I like the possibility of being able to have some kind of stunt sequence, and then you can zoom in and whatever, and you see that it's a real person.
Basically, Christian learnt fights very quickly. He'd go home at night and he'd watch the tapes, and he'd literally come in the next day and know the fights. He has a photographic memory, so I would show him a fight, and it sickens me. Because, I'd show him 20 moves, and then within half an hour, he would have all those 20 moves down. I can't do that, and I'm the fighter ranger. We all dream that we can take on 8 men at once and beat them all. And that's what the Bhutanese fight is like.
We see Bruce, younger. He has no fighting skills whatsoever. There's no technique to him. He's adopted different styles, but he hasn't created his own style yet.
We wanted to demonstrate that he had some skill, but it was really more about courage and brutality. We brought 11 guys over from Thailand, put the moves together, discussed them, said, wouldn't it be nice if, or shouldn't he be stronger here?
He wanted 8 guys coming at one guy all at once, and I had real trouble with that, because for 8 guys to attack one guy all at once is how am I going to put a fight, how am I going to choreograph? It was really quite hard.
To have them all coming at him, so that he's having to work triple time to take care of them, as opposed to people standing waiting to get up at the corner of the eye, coming in, taking their hit. We found what helped that was to keep him moving. So by keeping him moving, people could drop in his wake and then come into him as well. Christian did the whole thing. Buster sort of did a few little inserts, but Christian did the whole fight.
We spent a lot of time determining exactly how much of Batman to show, how much of his fighting to show, and I had always looked to a representation of Batman that would be more from the criminal's point of view, so you would see less of him. You would see him as more frightening. There would be more suspense as to what he was doing and where he was.
Where are you?
Here. And that meant showing less of him. Cutting fight scenes very, very fast, so that Batman is seen as being blindingly quick and aggressive and almost animal-like in the way he takes on the criminal.
The monorail was the biggest challenge because it was the finale and we all want a big showdown. Batman is on equal terms now with Ducard. I think we feel that they are equal to each other. It was punch for punch, kick for kick, and that's what made it very intense and dynamic.
Now we can really focus on using the Casey style at the end, and it's worked out really strong.
As a team, all of us, we all put that fight together and that energy together.
Liam and Christian were keen to be involved, to rehearse. In fact, you know, if they weren't doing anything, they'd actually call and say, look, why don't we rehearse? Liam was a strong fighter. Casey's actually a fighting system where you use a lot of elbows and fists, and Liam's very tall. I think he's 6'4", 6'5". He's a tall guy. So he has to get very low in order to do the blows.
Ready, and action!
We just wanted it to be as hard as possible. We wanted to show two men who are very highly trained and very highly skilled, very motivated.
When I saw the enjoyment out of when Liam had finished the sequence and Christian, you could just see the glee in their face when they finished that sequence, when they've just done 10, 15 move sequence. And that's the best.
Got it there. Right, sweetie. You guys all right? Yes.
I was extraordinarily impressed with the speed and the degree of intensity that the actors were able to get into the action scenes by doing things themselves rather than having the stunt performers do things for them. There's something in action and in fighting that is still very much performance, and so as a director I find it to be a great advantage to have actors like Liam, like Christian, who are willing to just dive in and express the character's physicality even in the most extreme situations.
Never learn to mind your surroundings.
My biggest challenge was to make the KFM, the Casey, work on screen, and hopefully it's new, creative. And that's what's good about the KFM. You can be creative with it. You can be very creative with it.
It was just kind of bizarre enough to get your attention and think, what the hell is he doing? And then absolutely vicious enough, but also practical enough to believe it.
Casey reflected quite nicely on our overall approach in terms of script and design of seeing Batman not as a glamorous sort of branded figure, decorative figure, but as a functional entity. Whilst I wanted the terms of the storytelling to be as realistic as possible, the expectation of this kind of epic film is that the action go as big as possible at the end, that you take things to as extreme and as large and as extraordinary a set of circumstances as can be achieved without violating the terms of the storytelling. So all of the action at the end is designed to push the envelope as far as possible, but never abandon the grounded roots that we've tried to establish in the tone of the storytelling.
Familiar. Don't you have anything new? How about it?
The idea is we'll try and shoot it first of all, we'll try and do it practically, we'll do a stunt, we'll do special effects, and only then when we exhausted those ideas will we try and turn to visual effects. So wherever we could do a stunt, even if it meant painting out a huge amount of wires or a rig or something like that, we'd opt to do that. It's a frame-by-frame laborious process. The benefit you get is you really get somebody doing the stunt. It's there, it's on film, everybody can see it, whereas creating the same thing digitally from scratch, that takes a hell of a long time just to get it to that believability level.
That was something that I really wanted to crack, getting the look of all this huge amounts of steam going off, and we spent a lot of time and research. And the whole of Cardington had a network of piping with massive great steam generators, and there were, I think, 20 manhole covers, which every single one was piped in with a 2-inch outlet of steam, and when we hit every one of those, the steam went up 150 foot. It reached the roof. So we would do a run, let it all off, and then Chris would shout cut. We would switch it all off, and then it would rain for about 20 seconds where all the condensed steam had gone up, hit the roof, and now was coming back down. Quite bizarre.
Hey! What the hell are you doing?
Gentlemen, time to spread the word. The word is panic.
I couldn't really see anything, but I thought it was so cool. I enjoyed it. I mean, I've had so much fun every day. We have the best of the best people working on this movie, so it's like, wow, okay. What do I do now?
As we've always said, that everything we can do on the movie for real, we will do. In this particular sequence, we've done a shot of him firing the gun and flying up to the train, and a continuation of that where he's flying along under the train. So Steve Crawley, who's our wire effects supervisor, rigged up a system for us with computers, and I think it looks fabulous. He's flying along, we've got him smashing through gantries as he goes along.
By the time I get to that bridge, I think I'm hitting about 30 mile an hour. We only did about a 15, 20 mile an hour rehearsal. Did it about 75%, but today we must have gone full speed. Someone must have had the Weetabix this morning.
The relationship between stunts and the special effects is very close indeed, because ultimately, Paul and I talk about what we're going to do in the scene, and then we go away, we design the rig, build the rig, but then we have to work with Paul's team to put them in amongst it and make sure they're happy with it.
When he's flying along, his boys are watching all the time to see where the performer is, and they'll time it so that he's in no danger. But we can still have him coming through the steam. It's just making sure that he's missed by the manhole covers and things like that. That's working with a good special effects team who you can trust and aren't going to hurt your guys,
It's a big thing to get set up and to get going, but once you do it, you look at dailies the next day and you've completed it. You've shot this amazing shot of Batman flying 800 feet across the city, and you've done it in an interior space during the day without the use of visual effects. That, I think, capsulizes Chris's philosophy of filmmaking, which is let's do it for real. Let's put it down the way you would see it, you would believe it, and that'll give us the kind of credibility to bring the audience in.
I wanted the confrontation at the end to be true to the spirit of the rest of the film, so that the actual confrontation be on the most human and almost banal scale possible.
Action!
The decision was made early on to do outside the windows 100% CGI. So we made the decision to build the train on stage and surround it with a green screen. Yannick Assers, the visual effects supervisor, and Dan Glass, the other visual effects supervisor, really came up with all the mathematics to figure out how high off the ground the train had to be lifted in order to not see off the green screen when handheld inside the train.
Action!
My approach to the train was I wanted to have kind of standard interior fluorescent lighting, but wanted to be able to flicker those lights a little bit as a real subway train would in a city. In addition to that, I used a series of 30 or 40 tracking lights with different colored gels on them outside the train on a dimmer board in what they call a chase. So the lights would go off one at a time. So the effect is a flickering light on the face that looks like you're going past lights in the city streets. So when all those elements come together, you really end up creating an environment that I think is very realistic. It's taking all the technology just to go back to square one and create something naturalistic and real looking.
the end of the movie is a combination of digital train, digital city, and then as soon as things start to blow up and you really need all that kind of interaction and crashing, there's a switch over there gradually to using a miniature train, colliding with a miniature environment. It still seems more feasible these days to actually do things with real things blowing up, even at small scale, than it does to do it digitally at this point.
We've got a collapsing monorail leg, which is at the far end of the set, which special effects have matched what we've built here, and that's basically hinged, so as part of the end, the finale, it will tip over.
How did it go for you? Very well, very well indeed. Well done. You get it? Yeah.
It was quite funny because when we came to do the shot, I had a bet with Chris Nolan where it would land, and we positioned the car. And I think we had a bottle of champagne on it, something like that, where he thought it would land one place and I knew it would land another place, but ended up where I thought it would land and also ended up where Chris thought it would land. So there was no settlement of the bet in the end. The miniature department made up the monorail sections. It was a matter of hanging them up and triggering them to release, when the leg fell away. They had all the ingredients there.
We have a 6-scale miniature of the thing, and with the special effects guys and model guys, we will sort of realise the destruction of this thing as it plummets to the ground. The reason the miniatures are so big is we basically wanted to achieve as much reality as we could. We're featuring all the usual stuff of fire and dust and sort of destruction effects. So in order to make them look as realistic as possible, we've gone for the biggest manageable scale that we could construct, which has turned out to be 6 scale. The train itself is catapulted down the rail, the broken rail, using a pulley system and gravity effects. Also, the cameras are shooting at 4 times normal speed, so the train is actually slowed down on screen in order to give it sort of scale and mass and what have you. And I'm hoping to acquire a really sort of spectacular sequence out of it for the film. Fortunately, because of the scale of a lot of the models we've got here, it's not just simply a case of just going in and grabbing them and pushing them around till you get the correct positioning, what have you. They're so damn big that we have to use forklifts and what have you to move them around. They're very cumbersome, so therefore it's very time consuming to set up a lot of these effects. But ultimately, I think the end result's worth it. So I believe that was probably one of the biggest miniature shoots ever. The great thing about this is we're actually getting the best of both worlds here, and we've got miniature effects augmented with CG effects, and ultimately the product should have a much more unique look, better than it would have if it had gone completely CG. So it's got a much more organic feel about it.
Three, 2, 1, and
This can now be done on computer graphics, but it just involves a huge amount of chaos, explosions, dust, debris, crushed cars, crushing trains. It's just very, very complex. And this particular case, a mixture of models and CG is the best way to go for everyone.
Wow! It actually lights up the interior of the train as well. Very nice. Clean sweep. What do you want to do next? Another one.
Yeah.
Again.
Come on. They kind of take our cue from the action on stage and then work out to build on top of that. So they'll film their live action pieces, be limited to a certain kind of scale, and then we'll cut to maybe a digital shot or a miniature shot and go bigger than that, but take our cue from those.
What was challenging for a number of reasons. First off was that the Batman animation had to dovetail with a practical stunt in the preceding shot where we actually see Batman exiting the train from inside the train.
So here we have Wayne Station pyrotechnic elements added to it. We have now added the crash sets at the bottom, adding the foreground buildings, the foreground architecture. So now adding the train and the monorail towers, debris passes coming out the back of the train, all the dust and stuff. And now we've added pretty much everything. We've got Batman in there. We make sure we can see Batman by putting lots of light on the buildings behind him. But at the same time, we can't just light everything. So we've had to dramatically add uplighters, little light sources, turn on some of the windows, add window reflections, so that we basically create Batman as a silhouette.
Constantly keep showing Chris where we're going with the shot, keeps looking at stuff, getting his feedback, getting his interaction there. And slowly the shot progresses and builds to the level where, like, oh, reaching critical mass, it's looking like it might be done. And then, of course, it's not. We go and do it many more times until Chris is happy.
Whereas I sit here, having just finished the film, I'm extremely happy with what I've been able to do in my terms. That is to say, I've made the film that I said I was going to make. I've made it in the way that I wanted to make it. I've availed myself of all kinds of extraordinarily dedicated and creative collaborators, and ultimately they've helped me to make the film the way I felt it should be made. And there isn't a frame of the film that I don't claim as my own, and that's very satisfying from a creative point of view.
Very nice. Check the gates on that. Swap bus transfer. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's go downstairs.
And action. Turn it over. So I can just articulate over. And action. Action. 3, 2, 1, go. Action.
Okay, Buster.
Yeah, ready.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Everything's good?
Just starting to get built down.
13, 14,
No
15.
sensation at all.
Okay, get out.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
I'd wanted to rethink the Batmobile. It's a key component of Batman's arsenal.
The Batmobile was so unbelievably well engineered.
They've really come up with something absolutely unique. There hasn't ever been a car like this before.
I was shocked. It was completely different to what I thought it would look like.
You're watching it and thinking, yeah, I could believe that he could get a car like that.
This car is so cool. I finally understood men's fascination with cars after I saw this thing.
It's the Batmobile. It should be a car that every kid wants.
What's that? Well, the
Tumblr? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
I felt that it was very important to design the Batmobile first before we approached any of the other aspects of design of the film, because I had a very specific idea in my head about a contemporary approach to a Batmobile, and our approach to it would tell everybody who saw it a lot about what we're doing with the whole film, which is a more grounded reality in which we're trying to base this story.
When we first started talking, Chris had this idea of crossing a Lamborghini and a Humvee. Chris was sort of making a little primitive model out of Play-Doh and said, sort of like this.
It was very, very crude. It looked more like a croissant than a car. But I felt very strongly that if we cracked that and showed it to people, they would either get it or they wouldn't. And if they didn't get it, then I'd know I was in trouble.
Then fairly early on in the process, Nathan Crowley, the production designer, came on. And while I was writing, this was crazy, he created a little model shop in Chris's garage. It was very much a film school atmosphere. That was part of the fun.
We really decided to be private and just started what I call model bashing. We just started making models of cars.
It's got bits of stealth bomber in it, it's got bits of Lamborghinis, bits of Hummers, and all different things put together in this marvellous combination.
Chris write his script and then come into the garage and I'd be covered in glue with car concepts.
The funny thing is the craftsmanship was really good too. You could see in Chris a kid that had built little car models when he was younger, because he and Nathan really had this down.
As an evolutionary process, Nathan was able to build one and I would look at it and make suggestions or actually change things like myself, and then we would move to the next step and then the next one.
We made about 5 or 6 Batmobiles. The one is the finished Batmobile, I think is the Mark V. So we took about 8 weeks to build.
When the script was done, we sort of presented not only the script, but all these great Photoshop elements of what the world and the Batmobile would look like, so that Warner Brothers could get the whole picture. And that initial prototype is 90% what the finished Batmobile became.
We took that model to England, found these great guys to produce the car full size.
Chris Nolan wanted the Batmobile to be a real car, not just a car that looked pretty but didn't actually function. His gem was, look, I want this to be a mean machine. I want it to perform. I want it to go through things, and that was, how we went into developing this whole car.
The challenge is first technically how to make something as complicated as that steer and work. Every piece of it has been made. You start with a clean jig, put the chassis on, start building the roll cage around the driver and the occupants in there, and build it up from nothing. The front end of the car is what is so different. There is no front axle. There's nothing holding the wheels in the conventional way. The wheels have to be held from the outside. It was difficult, but we always knew it was possible.
And 3, 2, 1, go. Chris had described the cockpit opening like the petals of a flower. We tried several times to talk him into an easier system, which made our life a bit easier, but he was not going to have that. The mechanism ended up where the front windscreen went up into the roof, and then the whole roof slides back, and then the 2 cockpit seats rise up. It was a nightmare trying to get that right. You've just got to have guys who've got technical knowledge of how to put all this together.
They were so faithful to our original kit bashed model that the glue blobs that Nathan had put into the model had been reproduced full size. It was quite a strange thing to look at.
It's 9'4" at its widest. Lengthwise, it's 15 feet, and height-wise, it's about 5 foot, I think. Weighs 2.5 tons. There's nearly half a ton of rear axle and wheels and tyres. So there's a big chunk of the weight sitting there.
Everybody was surprised to find that the Batmobile was ready before we thought it was going to be.
That's been very thrilling to watch a model that Nathan Crowley just built in my garage back in LA become a full-size working vehicle.
Here we have Andy and Jim going for the land speed record.
It was about 2 weeks before we started filming that we got the first prototype, without all the bodywork on, just a working chassis with the engine in. So we were sneaking the car around and taking it out to sort of hidden tracks and things, seeing what brakes, what doesn't brake. Start off testing it slowly, just drive in a straight line, make sure it handles okay. and progressively getting faster and faster. And slowly, through a development process, you arrive at a vehicle that can achieve all the shots on the page.
You can get to play Batman, but unless you're the stuntman who's driving that car, you don't get to have the coolest job.
The stunt side of it is we bring in one of the best drivers, George Cottle, who's young, but he's enthusiastic and extremely talented.
The car has so much potential. In one respect, I have the easy job because I know that if they say the car can do it, I know it'll do it.
We will rehearse every single shot with measurements of the location on a runway prior to going to the location so that you're aware of any problems before you get to the location when you've got the expense of the film crew there.
It's such a great car to drive, you know, it just screams at you, literally, you know, the noise is like somebody screaming at you. And I called Chris and I said, does this mean I'm going to be able to keep a Batmobile? And he said, you're crazy, of course you're not going to be able to keep a Batmobile.
This here simulates the jump onto the freeway. The tape on the right-hand side of the frame is the barrier, and the ramp is just behind it.
We'd practiced jumping the car so much, we just testing how the car reacted in the air, making sure it was balanced, whether we needed to put kick ramps on the car.
We went out to try and kill the car. You know, that's what we were trying to do, push it to the limits.
I was waiting for something not to work. It just landed and just took off straight away.
Roll camera, please. 305 Echo, take 1. 3, 2, 1, action.
I've got to get me one of those.
The car chase in Chicago, Chris from the beginning wanted to do something really extraordinary and fast.
We wanted to be able to use the Batmobile as a real car and have a real car chase that looks back to, you know, the French Connection and films like this, not the usual kind of studio-bound use of the Batmobile.
It's very rare that you drive a vehicle in a stunt sequence more than 50 or 60 miles per hour. And we took this Batmobile and drove speeds up to 80, 90 miles an hour, I think. And then on the open road, we got up to 100 miles an hour.
There's no trick photography. It's real time, real speed. You know, when the car's going 100, we're going 100.
Our basic approach to tracking with the Batmobile is a device called the Ultimate Arm, which is basically a Mercedes ML55 with a robotically controlled crane arm that gives you shots that you can't get any other way on moving vehicles.
The first night of tracking, they were shouting out speeds of 86, 88 miles an hour. I've never done speeds like that, only on helicopter tracking shots. But to do it from car to car tracking that's fast.
The director's in this Mercedes with the crane arm on it, flying along at 100 miles an hour. The Batmobile's flying along at 100 miles an hour. And so really there's no room for error. I mean, one little thing goes wrong and somebody's life is in danger.
On this film, George has probably done some of the best driving I've ever seen in all the years I've been doing it. He was absolutely tremendous.
There was a particular shot in Chicago to come down an exit ramp into like this big bus depot, and they wanted the car to come in and slide sideways, almost do like a complete 360, and then back out again in between two cars. And at first I was always kind of like, I don't know if it'll do it, and the first time we did it, it did it so easily. There was not one stunt where the car didn't drive away from it. It always managed to drive away from it. And we had to break this huge breakaway wall. No matter how breakaway it is, it's never going to be that breakaway. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to put the car through it. We did it. She got a few scratches, broke the glass, but apparently she's up and running again now. So I'll ask if I can keep it, take it home at the end of the film.
This evening we're doing the final part of the car chase sequence. Batman loses the helicopter and the police cars that are chasing him, and then hits the jump, takes off, flies across a river and into his Batcave. We're going to do the takeoff, and we'll land the car into a box rig just to protect the car, and then the entry into the Batcave we'll shoot later at Shepperton on a stage where we'll actually jump the car through a waterfall and land it on the stage.
Action! Okay, we good? Yeah, George, okay? We're good.
The landing in the Batcave we're doing for real with our real 2-ton car.
Initially, we were going to build a long run-up outside and actually drive it in, but we had big limitations within the studio, how we could get through the door. It was very narrow. We only had like 3 or 4 inches each side of the car. We actually decided in the end to stick a nitrogen cannon in it and fire it off of a ramp just the other side of the waterfall. The flip side is we had to stop it very quickly because it would have gone straight out the other side of the set. So we had a restraining cable on it so we could stop it within 8-10 feet.
So I'd like everyone to clear the set, please, and go to their positions they're going to be for the shoot. Okay, everyone stand by, please. And roll over, please. And 3, 2, 1, action!
Everything we did out there was done for real. None of the car turnovers or cannons or pipe ramps, none of it was CGI. And we really did do it. And that's what makes it so real, and, taking it back to the days of, even back to, Bullet or the French Connection or Ronin, everything was done for real.
I think this is the best Batmobile, for sure.
It just worked great, like clockwork. There's nothing I would change if we went back there and shot it again.
We're pleased with the overall performance of the whole thing. The speed, the handling, everything. It's turned out better than expected.
Chris wanted his legs to be more supple, let him be able to kneel down when necessary. And he also really, more than any other thing, wanted Christian to be able to move his head more and not do the superhero movement of turning the shoulders and the head at once, It had a really high-tech inside mixed with a wetsuit. You actually saw the inner workings of this suit. It's kind of carbon fiber plates. It protects the core of your body from falling below a certain temperature. He goes into the workshop and decides to spray it with a latex black spray, which removes the heat signature. So if you look with night glasses, which detect body heat, this refuses to allow you to see it. And as he tinkers with it, you see how he develops it from that into the black batsuit.
Once it was actually getting made for me, there's all sorts of interesting processes that you go through where you have to have your whole body, molded.
A plaster Christian Bale is then produced out of that mold, and as soon as the concept sculpt was approved, and it's literally broken down and remolded into the different parts of the costume. And the cowl, the torso, the legs, they all have to be sculpted individually from that original one piece. Getting the foam as black as possible was a problem, as that reduces the durability. We're not painting the foam, it's kind of the foam as it is. When those molds have been injected, they're cooked in a big oven, and then they come out of those molds. They're wet. It's just a very efficient way. It's just to put it through an old Victorian housemaid's mangle just to extract the water. The piece taken out and dried, they're then prepared for trimming. The mold doesn't produce like a cookie cutter kind of effect. There are flashings, these sort of waste areas on the edges of the foam that have to be trimmed back before it's glued down to the suit. And they're trimmed very patiently by our wonderful girls in art trimming. It has to appear as if it's cut by laser and not by hand. It's not the most comfortable thing to wear. I mean, it is foam latex, it's hot. But on the first day shooting, Christian managed to wear it all day, including the cowl and the gloves, not really wanting to take it off. So I think the level of comfort has improved somewhat as well.
It gives you this huge neck, kind of like a panther. This real kind of feral look, as you're going to pounce on somebody all the time.
I was just surprised at how intimidating he becomes and how much it changes him.
He really channels this other character.
When he's confronting an individual that he wants to take down, he kind of ceases to be human.
There's naturally, after 6 months of filming, a kind of a love-hate relationship with the thing, because you get headaches in that thing, and I kind of say to myself, use it. The guy's meant to be kind of fierce. When you get a headache, you feel fierce anyway. You got no time for anybody. You're impatient. So I just said to myself, use it, and I just put up with it. This is a hell of an honor, really, getting to wear this.
We did prototype using actual velvet fabric.
One, go.
We got quickly bogged down because it got waterlogged and, became sort of too heavy. So we invented our own fabric.
Which is the finest parachute silk, which is a nylon, so it's waterproof, and then flocked, which means you shoot little tiny hairs into it, so it ends up as if it's a velvet pile. So it's got the animal feeling on the outside and the waterproof nature and the lightweightness that it flies.
I was doing a lot of research with the Department of Defense, and there's something called memory fabric that they're experimenting with now. It's very soft and supple, but when an electrical current is applied to it, it can take on a rigid shape.
Warner Brothers held the world premiere for Batman Begins in Tokyo, Japan on May 31st, 2005. With other premieres being held around the world, the film opened on June 15, 2005 in the United States and Canada.
Hello and welcome to the dark and seedy underbelly of Gotham City. I'm in London actually, but today Leicester Square really feels like Gotham City because it's playing host to the European premiere of Batman Begins. Join us for the next half hour as we take you beneath the cape, inside the utility belt and behind the mask in this new big screen incarnation of the legendary Caped Crusader. Coming up, superheroes need a decent set of wheels, and Batman's ride is better than ever. Find out what's new in Gotham City.
I don't think you really could call it a prequel because we don't really relate it to the other films.
Get all the behind-the-scenes secrets.
And join me later from Hollywood, where I will meet the Dark Knight himself, Christian Bale.
Batman has a strong masochistic streak.
Plus his love interest, Katie Holmes.
Every day on the set was just better than the day before.
And the colourful cast of Batman Begins.
I'm a superhero at school.
Cheers, Danny. But before any of that, this is the European premiere of Batman Begins. And this is how it all began, when the stars turned out for the return of the Winged Avenger. Now, I'm sure you've been to quite a few premieres before. How does this one kind of compare to the rest?
This is incredible.
How amazing is this?
I know, isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
I suppose it's a Batman thing, but it really is a massive amount of people here.
I am now stood with Batman, Christian Bale. Welcome to the European premiere.
Thank you.
How about this for a turnout, huh?
Yeah, no, good turnout. But, I'm under no illusions. This is for Batman. This ain't for me.
No, it is for you. This is Cillian Murphy, who is the most evil man in this film. Welcome. Hi, how are you? What's your favourite thing about London?
Shopping. Good shops, yeah.
You were very convincing in the film with all the gadgets, but in real life, how good are you all the gadgets?
I'm an idiot.
You played Batman. How many years ago now? Was that 10 years ago?
Almost.
Yeah.
9 years ago.
Have you seen the all-new Batmobile?
I just saw it.
How does it compare with the one that you had to drive?
It's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's faster too.
Sometimes bigger is better.
So that was the premiere. Now back to the actual movie. This is the origin of Batman and how he went from rich young orphan to crime-fighting superhero. But how is this Batman different from all the others?
I didn't become a fan of it until about the year 2000 when somebody lent me a graphic novel. And I was really surprised that, this depiction of Batman was completely different from anything that I'd seen before. And just could not understand why nobody had made that movie before, because it's so much darker, so much more severe, and so much more interesting than any of the other Batman movies. As a man.
Big movie, but a very unusual one. And that's because I think, Chris is just judging by the work he's done before. He's a real filmmaker, so he's come to it with a very, very new, fresh look.
I mean, I don't think you really could call it a prequel because we don't really relate it to the other films stylistically or anything else. We wanted to do something very different, very fresh, and so it's really a completely different type of Batman. It's a Batman told in a more realistic way, and it talks about the origin. It explains, how Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, and more importantly, why he becomes Batman.
Why bats, Master Wayne?
Bats frighten me.
Well, he's nuts. I mean, if you got someone that you brought up and he's an orphan, and then suddenly he says, I'm going to start climbing up the Empire State Building dressed as a bat, you go, now listen, son, I think we'd better
Need a chat.
just sit by the fire, we'll talk about this. The only thing that stopped me from calling the men in white coats was when you said that it wasn't about thrill-seeking. It's not.
There's a darkness to the film, to the script. There's a real richness of texture to it, and the journey that Christian goes through to confront his guilt and his fear and his wealth is kind of multi-textured, multi-layered.
There's nobody left to send it.
Batman's got it all, hasn't he? He's an iconic figure all over the world. He drives a great car. He's rich beyond belief. Every movie he makes is in the press. And any movie with his name on is guaranteed to bring in the punters. But there's only one lady that can make him go weak at the knees. Danny Bear. Met that lady in Hollywood.
Batman patrols around the city of Gotham in this little dainty number right here as he fights off the tide of crime that threatens to swamp the city. Fortunately, though, there is a small ray of light in the shape of Assistant DA Rachel Dawes, played by Katie Holmes. Now, a little bit of romance brewing between her and Bruce Wayne, I can tell ya. Why is it we always fall for the dark, mysterious ones? Eh? Nice to meet you, Katie.
Very nice to meet you,
You did a great
Danny.
job. The film is... I was exhausted watching this movie.
Oh,
with
really?
all the fighting and so
Yeah.
intense, and it was action-packed.
It's a very exciting movie. Yeah, I'm so proud of it.
You've done a whole bunch of movies, and obviously Dawson's Creek, and this must have been like the big kind of action movie for you.
It was so exciting to be a part of this movie. I was so thrilled to be a part of this amazing cast, and the movie has so much action, and the Batmobile, Gotham City, and I really loved the story, and so it was exciting. It was so exciting to be a part of this.
I was going to say, a stellar cast. You don't get better than Michael Caine and Liam Neeson.
I know.
I was watching, I was like, anybody else? Come on.
We were gone a long time.
No.
Every day on the set was just better than the day before, and my eyes just got bigger and bigger. And I was excited, and You know, I remember when I was working with Michael Caine, we just laughed the whole time. He's
a funny guy.
He is. He's such a professional and such a great actor. But he cracks jokes until they yell action, and so it was a delight.
Bruce, deep down, you may still be that same great kid you used to be, but it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you.
Now, women love tall, dark, handsome, mysterious men with a great car. Is Batman the ultimate guy?
Tom Cruise is the ultimate guy.
Good answer. There you go. I was going to say, it doesn't get better than that, right?
Now, they say you're only as good as the people around you, and as you can see, today, I'm surrounded by a lot of great people. Thanks. The same is true of Batman, who is backed up by a stellar supporting cast. Over to you, Danny.
Well, I've just met the lovely Katie Holmes, and soon I'll be peeking beneath the cowl of Christian Bale. But let me just tell you, this film offers an embarrassment of acting riches. We've got Michael Caine. He plays the trusted butler, Alfred. We've got Liam Neeson. He plays the enigmatic Henry Ducard, who's Bruce Wayne's mentor. We have Morgan Freeman, who gives Bruce Wayne all these fabulous toys to play with. And, of course, the brilliant Gary Oldman, who plays Detective Sergeant Jim Gordon, the only good cop left in Gotham, and he gets to drive this old meaty machine here. Lucky boy. Now you must be the most popular dad in your kids' lives and in your kids' schools.
I'm a superhero at the school, yeah. There was a kid actually at the school the other day, and he had the Batmobile, the new toy. And I said, I drive that in the movie. And he was like, wow. Like, how often do you get, how often do you get to say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a kid's holding a toy, and you go, yeah, I've driven one of those.
You know how to disappear. We can teach you to become truly invisible.
Now, your character in the Batman movie tends to kind of kick Christians, but quite a few times. Who was the better fighter in real life when you're training?
Well, I'd say Christian's pretty tough. He was very fit. Yield. You haven't beaten me. You've sacrificed sure footing for a killing stroke.
I wouldn't like to lay a bet, but he's the younger man.
It's called memory cloth. Regularly flexible, but put a current through it, becomes rigid.
I hear in this movie you worked for like 5 days?
Something close.
Because it seemed like you were in the entire film.
That's how we fool you forever, because when I'm not on stage, you think I'm down there in the lab busy working with it.
With Master Wayne, the guests will be arriving. Keep them happy until I arrive. Tell them that joke,
Batman's the Dark Knight, but you're Sir Michael Caine, a knight of the realm. What are you doing playing a lowly butler?
That's how you get to be a knight.
There you go.
Yeah. I assume that as you're taking on the underworld, this symbol is a persona to protect those you care about from reprisals.
You're thinking about Rachel?
Actually, sir, I was thinking to myself. It's even worse than that because I made a picture called Quills.
Right.
And in Quills, I owned that house. And now I'm the butler, so I've really come down in the world. I mean,
demoted.
Yeah.
So that's it for part 1, but stay tuned to this Bat Channel because in part 2, we slip behind the wheel of the all-new Batmobile.
I gotta get me one of those.
And I unmasked the driver of the new Batmobile. Yes, this beauty right here, the Caped Crusader himself, Mr. Christian Bale.
It's a real raw machine.
Welcome back to this window into the world of Batman Begins. Soon, I come face to face with the Caped Crusader himself, Mr. Christian Bale.
He kind of wants people to punish him.
And we find out more about this nifty little beast. That's what's still to come, but right now we're at the European premiere of the movie, and it's like rush hour in Gotham City and Leicester Square.
There's much humor throughout the movie, but never directed at the Batman. We take that very seriously.
Do you ever wish, just to get away from the press and to remain incognito, you could just put on a mask and those people wouldn't bother you anymore?
Oh, you know what? No.
Are you a fan of Batman comics?
Well, yeah. I'm not going to stand here being one of the actors in Batman and say I'm not a fan of Batman, even if I'm not, but I am.
My character isn't. The film will explain how. My character is the Bat Signal.
Have you ever been asked to play a superhero? And if not, then would you do it?
Well, no, I've been up with the play a superhero.
Come on, Michael. You've played a kind of evil role, though. Is there not a kind of danger that you might always be off of those and you can never be a nice guy again?
No.
Are you worried about being typecast as Batman now?
If that were to happen, then so be it. You know, stick a fork in my ass and that's it. I'll be Batman for the rest of my life.
As well as giving us a brand new Batman / Bruce Wayne in the shape of Christian Bale and revealing his hidden origin, we also get a brand new, super pimped up Batmobile. It's built like a Sherman tank, it drives and handles like a Formula One car, and impressed all the stars of the movie.
I'll get my car. I brought mine. Yours.
If you don't like cars, you can't help but have an appreciation for the engineering behind the Batmobile when you see it. And it's something completely different from any Batmobile that you've seen. Credibility it's meant to be coming from a military application.
So what do you think?
Does it come in black?
What I wanted to do is combine, a sports car, combine a Lamborghini Countach with a Humvee.
It's a Humberghini.
Humberghini. I like
Yeah.
that. You should paint on that, Gary.
Yeah.
It was a male dream fantasy car, right?
Absolutely, something that it has a sports car thing, but it's also got the aggression, so you can literally roll over other cars and crash and, crush over them.
It's quite a fantastic looking thing, but it's not CGI'd in, and it's not tricks. It does do all those turns and speeds, and the guys did drive it. It's real.
He's on the roof.
When they first said what they wanted to do with it, I was a little bit sceptical myself, but there was not one stunt, not one jump, or not one gag that we did where the car didn't drive away from it. It just kept coming back for more.
I'm a girl. I never really was that into cars.
Right.
I was, just get me from here to there and sports cars, whatever. But when I saw the Batmobile and then I heard it turn on and I saw how fast it went, I was like, okay, I get it.
So, what have we learned so far? Well, we've discovered the true origin of Batman for the first time. We've also discovered that Bruce Wayne's a bit nuts, according to Michael Caine. But what other Bat facts should we know? Check out our fact file. Batman has been fighting the good fight against crime in Gotham City for 66 years now, having first appeared in May 1939. More recently, Christian Bale lost a whopping 4.5 stone for his role in The Machinist, and then had to put that back on, plus a further 2 stone 6 pounds to play the Dark Knight. He gained the weight by working out and eating lots of food. The new Batsuit, which is far more flexible than previous versions, is composed of a neoprene undersuit with moulded latex sections on top. The workshop that created it was nicknamed Cape Town, and over 40 people were employed to make the costume. The new Batmobile is equipped with a 5.7-litre, 340 horsepower engine. It's 9 feet, 4 inches wide, 15 feet long, and weighs 2.5 tons. It can accelerate from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, and can jump up to 6 feet in height. The look of Gotham City was based on a combination of New York, Chicago, and Tokyo. Filming actually took place on the streets of Chicago, as well as in London's Docklands. The largest Gotham set was in a former aircraft hangar in Cardington, a small village near Bedford. Most big Hollywood movies employ a second unit to film stunts and many shots not involving principal actors. But for Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan directed every single shot of the 129 days of principal photography. There have been many Bruce Waynes over the years, but there's only one man that could play him like a true American psycho, and that's our very own Christian Bale. Danny met up with him, once she does, in LA, and discovered that he quite enjoyed getting a clip round his bat ear.
Boys will be boys, and for most of them, they dream of one day becoming a superhero. Sadly, though, they usually end up becoming accountants. But for Christian Bale, his dream is realized as he now dons the famous cape, the cowl, and the utility belt of the Dark Knight. So amongst the many questions I had for him, I've got to say the one I was dying to ask was, what was it like to get behind the wheel of this, the coolest car in any superhero's garage? The Batmobile. Now, first thing I have to ask you was, you lost 60 pounds approximately for The Machinist, and then I heard you put another 80 pounds back on for Batman. How was the timing for that for you?
It was too short, it was too short a time to be healthy to put that weight back on. But, The Machinist was a script and a project that I just loved. And so I wanted to commit to it that much, and so I really had gotten to be, like a toothpick. And then Batman came along. He's a guy without any superpowers or whatever, so you have to actually look the part. You have to look like you can physically do everything that he does. It was just a race, of stuff in my face and working out for hours.
What was the best part, losing or the putting on?
I would say that the losing is actually preferable. When I started eating again, you started getting all of the moods and the nervousness and everything coming back. But, it didn't matter because it worked for Batman, because he's meant to be a moody, dark.
Now, what was it like driving the Batmobile for all the men?
It was screaming. It's a real raw machine. It was absolutely stripped to the bone on the inside, so there was no kind of sound insulation. So as you're driving it, you can't hear a damn thing. It's screaming in your ears, but that's so exhilarating.
By the way, Liam Neeson said that even though he kicked your butt a few extra times in the movie, you're actually a better fighter in real life.
The training is nothing. Thank you very much, Liam. He's a big dude. I'm not sure that would be the truth.
Was the fighting really hard for training for you?
We were looking to try and invent something that would look like Bruce Wayne's own invention. And then it was my stunt double, actually, Buster Reeve, who remembered this discipline called Casey. Which is it's like a Spanish-English fighting discipline that's really brutal. It worked very well with the whole cowl and the suit because of the positioning.
I was going to say, working with a mask and a suit, does that make everything doubly as hard?
The suit was actually fantastic for the fighting. It gives you the protection, so I really could take punches and not be devastated by them. But the KC moves are very brutal. It's all about breaking bones, but it's also about never moving backwards, and I liked that about it because, to me, Batman has a strong masochistic streak,
Right.
He has a lot of guilt. And he kind of wants people to punish him. So as he's moving in on the fights, he doesn't object to the fact that he's getting hit. He enjoys that pain.
And lastly, because we've got to wrap it up, Batman continues. Should we expect a sequel?
That depends how it does. I would hope that people will like what we've done with it. I think it will be the first time that the hardcore fans of Batman will find, finally a Batman that, is a definitive portrayal. But it's also just great movie making. It's great storytelling. And so if people like that, then I'd hope to be able to continue it.
Cheers, Danny. Well, that's about it from our revealing look behind the mask at the all-new Batman. From me and all of us at the European premiere in Leicester Square. See ya.
The movie action continues today here on ITV1. Next, with the classic starring Kirk Douglas, Laurence Olivier and Peter Ustinov. The Academy Award-winning Spartacus is next. And later at 6:30, when his friend is murdered, Axel Foley is out to find the man responsible. There's action and laughs as Eddie Murphy stars in Beverly Hills Cop at 6:30.
Hollywood Boulevard, the black carpet world premiere, Batman Begins. My name's Leo Quinones. You're online with iFilm. This is the Batman movie I've waited for my whole life. Check out these stars. I'm just a face in the crowd. Nothing to worry about. Not even trying to All right. Well, this is a Batman fan's dream. I've seen the movie. The Bruce Wayne Playboy angle, which has been completely ignored. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Bruce Wayne's a very serious man, He's obsessive. He's virtually fanatical. in his pursuit of his goals. Alfred reminds him that he's meant to try and have some fun in life, that probably his parents would have appreciated him having a bit of fun in life. And that also it would be a very good disguise so that people would never expect that Bruce Wayne could be capable of being Batman. So he attempts to create an impression of himself as a drunken billionaire, a complete wastrel, who, yes, is a playboy and absolutely useless.
Do you remember the TV show when you were... Did you ever see it when you were a kid?
Yeah, I used to watch it, same back time, same back channel. I've seen it since, because I now got 2 kids that watch it and love it.
We didn't realize it was campy back then, did we?
It doesn't hold up.
Right.
It doesn't hold up.
What is sexual about Batman? Let's go. You want to start?
It's the mask. I mean, it's the sexy mask.
Leave it on. It's the
If you're
black
Batman,
rubber.
hell yeah.
The black rubber. I think it's because he's dark and mysterious, and people respond to that.
Let's talk back to the comic books. A couple of your favorites that just started to trigger everything for you.
You know, I actually loved the TV show when I was a little kid, and that just gets the character in your head. But when something like, Frank Miller's Batman Year One came along, I mean, that's just a phenomenal story because it tells you something you didn't know about how Bruce Wayne became Batman, and it does it in a realistic fashion, and that's exactly what we've tried to do with our films.
Chris Nolan's vision. Do you think it's all up there from your first meeting with him to what's up there now?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got all of the entertainment, you got the incredible, pyrotechnics and action sequences. But the most important thing, with any movie, regardless of the size, is the storytelling and not dumbing it down. And Chris has not done that.
I mean, we shot at the foot of Europe's biggest glacier in Iceland, and this behemoth moves at 4 or 5 inches every day. So the ice was constantly and subtly shifting and cracking and warping and buckling, and there were times we had to get off and wait until it settled, and then we go back on again and fight a little bit more. And it was pretty intimidating, actually. And no set, that's all Mother Nature.
So tell me about your romance with Bruce Wayne in the movie.
Well, I guess we probably liked each other a lot, but we were best friends and we just always hanged out with each other because I think I was pretty much his only friend. And I've kind of bet that we probably liked each other.
Why is Batman cool?
Why is Batman cool? He saves people's lives. You can't get much cooler than that.
And this part is written beautifully, and I'm the father figure, I'm the legal guardian, I'm his assistant, we make the uniform together, I'm his conscience, and I'm his link to his parents who are dead. So he's very much more than a butler. I mean, he's not someone who comes in and says dinner is served, but he's also the butler.
This is the dream team for Batman, I guess. I met Nolan and his whole vision and just take on this character and the way he wanted to do it and the passion and the enthusiasm. I mean, it just contaminated you and won me over. Before I read the script, I said yes before I read the script.
So he gave you a good pitch?
Oh, his pitch was fantastic.
Can you talk about the kind of magic that's coming out of things like Comic-Con, showing the real Bat fans what they're doing, and what does it mean to actually say, here you guys go?
It's pretty daunting to see what they're going to think of it. I mean, we've tried to be as respectful of the mythology as possible. We've tried to draw from the great history of this character, and I'm very hopeful that the fans will, really feel the sincerity of our effort to just make the great Batman film that I wanted to see, and hopefully a lot of the fans wanted to see.
My name is Leo Quinones from the black carpet premiere of Batman Begins. We'll see you next time.
Join us on the red carpet.
Hey, it's Scott Hoover with Hollywood.com. We're here on the black carpet for the premiere of Batman Begins. As you can see, I'm totally prepared for it, although I thought you guys were going to get me the shirt with the built-in abs. Next time, can you make sure you get that to me before the shoot? Thanks.
We're going to see you guys in a week or something, aren't we? 2 weeks? That's right. Thanks,
about how the suit actually helped you get into character almost immediately?
Yeah, because I felt like a fool if I just stood there chatting and behaving like a man, you know? I had you know, an idea that I wished to portray Batman as a creature, as somebody who ceased to be really human when he donned the bat suit, and that just confirmed it when I first put the suit on, because you can't put that thing on without feeling like a predator.
And did you become kind of nocturnal in character?
I've always been nocturnal.
I actually wasn't a Batman fan from the start. He was too grounded. He had no superpowers. So as a kid, that wasn't it for me. I was more Superman.
If you're going to be in one of these movies, who would you want to play? Is there a villain, or would you want to be Batman's girlfriend?
I want to be Batman's girlfriend. I want to be the girl in the poster that is like laying there and doesn't ever have to worry because Batman's taking care of me, baby.
I'll play Batman any day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Are you looking forward to seeing what Christian Bale does with the part?
I think so. I mean, I'm excited to see the film. I'm excited about the franchise that is coming back. So I wasn't dead after all, so it's good.
Sky News.
Hello.
Hello.
Cillian Murphy.
Thank you very much. Now, were you a fan of Batman when you were younger?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
How big of a fan? Tell us.
Well, I had the suit, I had the little suit, and I had the toys and all the gadgets, so yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
So then being able to play in a Batman movie, what was that like?
Yeah, obviously it was a wonderful experience, and you know, the quality of the actors involved, you know, and the director, yeah, it was a real dream come true.
As you say, quality of actors, I mean, they're Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, they've got one or two Oscars each already.
I know.
Plus a lot of others who have been nominated. So, you know, to work again with them, what was that like?
That was a real joy, you know, and you know, obviously you'd be nervous, but we're all actors eventually, and you just have to serve the script, and it's still get a kick out of seeing them and watching it, and you see what they bring to the movie. It's incredible. So.
And you're one of the many villains in the show. What was that like being able to play with them?
It's great, you know, and always you can have a bit of fun with the bad guys in the Batman movie, and this is a brilliantly drawn character, and I enjoyed it tremendously.
Great, thanks, Cillian.
Great, all right. See you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to congratulate you. I think you did an outstanding job in this movie.
Thank you very
It's
much.
spectacular, and I can't wait to see it again. It's
Thanks.
fabulous. What are your earliest memories of Batman?
You know, I guess it would be Adam West, you know, from the TV series, you know, which I realize now is an absolute spoof on what Batman is meant to be.
Yeah, definitely. When you got the script, obviously something connected to you, deeper than just, oh, here's another script. What was it, and why did you really want to play this Batman?
Well, it was because prior to reading this script, I had been given a graphic novel of Arkham Asylum, it was called. And I was really surprised. I've never been a comic book fan or anything, and I was never particularly a Batman fan. And I kind of begrudgingly read this Arkham Asylum and thought it was fantastic. Then I read Batman Year One, and I took a look at Dark Victory and The Long Halloween, and I realized that this is an interesting character. This is Batman in a way that I've never seen him depicted before. You know, why has it never been done in this way? And so I was actually looking for and hoping for a movie that would be made depicting him in this fashion, and taking it in a much, you know, darker direction than anything I'd seen previously, and so you know, I was pursuing it before the script had even been written, and then found out that Chris Nolan had gotten involved. Loved that idea because he's not somebody who makes these kind of big blockbuster movies like this, so he was going to be bringing very new eyes to it. He's a very intelligent director. And we met and discussed it, and you know, I had very strong ideas about the way that I wanted to play the character, and he liked it, and he was in absolute agreement with it. I did have to screen test for it with a number of other actors, but you know, ultimately, you know, it all came good. But so by the time that I actually was reading the script, I'd kind of become obsessed enough with it that I was sort of determined that I was going to be playing this character anyway, you know, regardless.
Yeah, there's no doubt in everything I've seen you in. You're the one of the most dedicated actors I've ever seen on screen. Congratulations. I mean, The Machinist was... Then you come and you gain, you know, 60-odd pounds for this, and you're really into it. What ultimately was the biggest challenge playing this role for you?
I mean, that was a challenge physically, you know, in getting there that fast, because actually losing the weight for the machinist felt far healthier than having to gain the weight for Batman, which was done in a much more rapid fashion. I think it was also, though, you know, there's a great deal of psychology going on within Batman, and wanting to incorporate into a big mega movie some intelligence and some you know, good human story. You know, I think that's the thing that I like so much about what Chris has managed with this, is that it not only is going to, I think, satisfy finally the hardcore Batman graphic novel fans, but also satisfy people who appreciate good filmmaking and good storytelling, you know. And for that, you always have to have the human dynamic, the human, you know, conflict, and that's always the most important thing that any actor brings, regardless of whatever physical transformation you have to achieve for a movie.
Now, you know you have to get into that bat suit. What was it like at wearing it, and the first time you got into it? Did you know?
The very first time, it actually wasn't my bat suit. It was for the screen test, and so it was one of the bat suits from the other Batman movies. So it was actually very uncomfortable because it didn't fit me properly, and it was too small. But it did give me a sense of a kind of a confirmation of the way that I wanted to play the character, because you just couldn't stand there and chat and be like a regular guy in the bat suit. You know, you had to become something more than that. You had to become a kind of a beast. And so by the time I actually got into the bat suit that was tailor-made for me, whole lot more comfortable, much more lightweight as well, and breathable. Yes, very hot still, very sweaty. You know, the cowl gives you a splitting headache and everything, but you kind of use it, you know. You use that because Batman is not meant to be a real happy-go-lucky character. He's meant to be an incredibly intense, focused, rage-filled character, and you know what? Having a tight cowl on your head giving you that headache, it really helps with the performance.
Yeah, because I can imagine. Okay, that Batmobile, the coolest car I've ever seen on screen.
Yeah,
I mean, how
I
cool
agree.
was it being around
Oh,
that thing?
that was a fantastic thing. You know, I saw it right from the get-go when they first started building it, and then seeing the final result. Like the movie, I think it shows you just how much of a different direction we've taken this Batman in, you know, because it looks nothing like the other Batmobiles. This one is completely practical. It's believable as being a military experiment that, you know, that the Pentagon decided not to fund. You know, it has this kind of stealth technology look to it, which, you know, and then it's kind of a blend of a Lamborghini and a Hummer mixed together. It's an incredible machine. You know, the noise of it is exhilarating beyond belief, and getting to drive it, it was just, you know, one hell of a thrill.
There's no doubt people are going to love this movie. Are you up for a couple of more? I mean, you going to put that bat suit on
hey,
again?
Listen, if people love it in this way, so that we get to make it and continue making the movies in this way and pushing it further, absolutely I'm interested. I would never be interested in going back to the way that Batman was depicted before, but this way, yes, I'd like to continue.
Well, keep up the good work. You're a brilliant actor, and it's a pleasure for me to have a chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great. Busy guy?
Yeah,
You're
sure.
like every movie.
It's a coincidence.
It's great. It's great to see you.
Well, it's very funny that they came out, the two movies that have come out, Bewitched and this, at the same time, you know, because I made them a long, long time
Well, of course.
apart.
That was, and The Weatherman, I saw.
Yeah, The Weatherman
I saw The Weatherman in February because Gore was supposed to come to Toronto.
Yeah.
And now they've postponed
It
that.
phoned it to November.
But it's so good.
Did you like it?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Really,
a good
really
movie, yeah. But all three, this and Bewitched, they're so different.
Absolutely.
It made a good year for me.
Yeah, it was a
I had
great
fun on several different levels.
Well, keep up the good work.
I'm trying to.
Okay. Congratulations. Always wonderful to see you. Your earliest memories of Batman?
My earliest memories of Batman was the films, but not the comics, because I grew up in the war, and there weren't any comics because there wasn't any paper. I think used to fire paper at Germans for some reason. I don't know what happened. There was always, so you can't get it. They're using it for ammunition, you know, like fertilizer in the soil. They're firing manure at Germans, whatever. They're firing Batman comics at Germans, and they're killing them. So I never saw any Batman or comics or anything until the movies came out, which was quite late. I think it was the first time I was really aware was on television. I think that one, and that was very campy. Yeah, I mean, it was like a joke. I saw it last night when I was getting ready to go out. It suddenly came on television. Yeah, with Burgess Meredith, the Parrot Man or something. It was very campy. And Robin, I'm glad we don't have a Robin in this.
Yeah, the tights
Yeah,
alone.
there's no Robin with tights on. We don't need that. No.
No, you get this script. You know, Christopher sends you the script, and which I would think must have blown you away. What was it that you connected with?
Well, the first thing you connect with, you go, Christopher Nolan. I mean, I knew his work. He's going to do $180 million Batman, and you go, Jesus Christ. And then the script says, Batman Begins, and you wait a minute, I've seen 7 or 8 Batman. What is he talking about? And then you read the script, and you know that you're really seeing a version of Batman for the first time. It really does begin. I was talking to a man yesterday, a reporter who was interviewing me, and the first thing he said to me was, he said that this is the movie that all Batman fans have been waiting for. He said, this is the one they should have made. And I feel that because the way he develops it. And also, normally these pictures are a lot of plastic characters running around to get you to the next big explosion or whatever. Here he has got wonderful actors. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about all the others. He's got great actors with the exception of me, and he's got great construction. There is construction and there's a mind working. And it was a wonderful script. He brought it to me on a Sunday morning and said, you've got to read it now because I'm not leaving it with you. And he was very secretive. And it wasn't even called Batman Begins, it was called The Intimidation Game. And the whole movie was made, I mean, on the clapperboard when we were making the movie, it said Intimidation Game. And he wouldn't let it out. It's this secret thing. And you see why now, because it's an absolutely unique way of looking at Batman.
And it's an amazing relationship between Alfred and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, oh yeah, because there are 2 reasons for that. I mean, obviously, Christian and I, who never knew each other before, we get on very well. Plus, he's an excellent actor and the best Batman I've ever seen. But also, I grew up in very large houses. My mother was a cook, so I was sort of upstairs, downstairs. I was downstairs. I'm good at that. I always get downstairs. And so I knew butlers, and I knew how butlers worked and everything. And he himself, Christian, has very strong feelings about masters and servants. He's a very egalitarian kind of person. So he came down to this line as far as he could go to be a friend with me, and I went up to the line as far as I could go to be a friend with him without usurping or being insolent or anything. Mm-hmm. But even so, he can still say to him, don't forget to bring the Rolls Royce back full up, you know. It's that great relationship that you can have with a master and servant, especially when they're like in Batman, they're partners in making the suit.
Why do you think Christian Bale was the perfect guy to play Batman? What were your impressions of him?
Well, I'd seen him in American Psycho. That's all I saw him in. And the very first thing struck me about him when I met him on the Batman set, that he was extremely dedicated, because in American Psycho he was this rather thin young man. When I went on the set of Batman, there was Arnold Schwarzenegger standing there. I thought, boy, this guy really means it. He's been doing push-ups here. I thought I should at least do 1 push-up myself, token stuff, you know. So I knew he was dedicated. But if you see American Psycho, he looks like the all-American boy, even though he's an Englishman. He's been in America so long, I thought he was an American. I didn't know he was English. But he has this dark side. I don't know whether he has it in real life. As an actor, he has a dark side on this very nice, open, keen face, you know? And I think that's why, I've heard Christopher say that's why he chose him. He has a dark side on an innocent face, which Batman, of course, does have a very dark side. If you're going to crawl up the Empire State Building dressed as a bat, you've got a dark side.
I'd say. And your impressions when you first saw him in that bat suit?
Oh, I thought, I looked at him and I remember I said, it must be hot in there. He said it is. He said he was losing 2 or 3 pounds a day inside that damn thing. But the first time I saw the bat suit, he wasn't in it. I was on the set in that cellar, in that cave we had where we were making this stuff. And I'm curious with the set, because I go around, I'm supposed to know the place. It was my first thing there. What I do as an actor, I go around and familiarize myself with all the doors and everything, because if I've been in there 30 times, why am I opening a door the wrong way? like someone who doesn't know it. I've got to see. That's the first thing you do on a set. Is if it's your home, you've got to go around and that opens easily. And I opened this cupboard, it made me jump because the bat suit was right there. And I went, oh shit. I shut it very quickly because it's a tough-looking suit, really, isn't it? I mean, that's the tough suit.
This is clearly open for more. Are you up for some more of these? Because I hope.
Oh yeah. Well, at the end, you see, Gary Oldman is the police chief. Says, "Thanks for helping me with this. By the way, we got trouble with this guy." Turns the card over, and it's a Joker. The only thing is, I don't want to be the guy who has to play the Joker after Jack did it.
No. You're going to be Alfred from here on in.
I'm Alfred, yeah. But imagine the guy who's got to play the Joker.
Tough, big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well,
Thank you, and best of luck. And
Thank you so
I'm going to
much.
see Bewitched this afternoon, so I'm looking forward to that.
Batman is one of our darkest and most iconic heroes. This year, after much anticipation, he returns to the screen. And here's the trailer to Batman Begins.
Tell us, Mr. Wayne. What do you fear?
How do you know my name?
The world is too small for someone like Bruce Wayne to disappear. Your parents' death was not your fault.
My parents deserve justice.
I cannot let that pass. If you make yourself more than just a man, then you become something else entirely. Which is? A legend, Mr. Wayne.
Master Wayne, are you coming back for long, sir?
As long as it takes to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt.
Bruce?
Rachel?
You were gone a long time.
I know.
Things are worse than ever down here. What chance does Gotham have when the good people do nothing?
Nomex survival suit for advanced infantry. Kevlar utility harness, gas-powered magnetic grapple gun.
What's that?
On the tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
I spent a lot of time being scared for you. I heard you were back. But the man I loved, the man who vanished, never came back.
He's here.
Who? The Batman.
Gotham must be destroyed.
Gotham isn't beyond saving.
Just hold on.
Guy dresses up like a bat clearly has issues.
Joining me now is filmmaker Christopher Nolan and the actor playing Batman, Christian Bale. I'm pleased to have them here to talk about this movie. What did you say? It was an MTV what?
There's a spoof on part of the movie as part of the MTV Movie Awards, but I haven't seen it yet. I heard it was very funny.
Yeah. Why did it take this long to have another Batman? I mean, this is a valuable franchise.
It is, but I think there was a feeling from the studio, I guess, that the direction the previous franchise the previous version of the franchise had gone was extremely stylized and had kind of run its course.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to let a bit of time pass before you do something that refreshes it and kind of reinvents it.
A lot of people have done this. It's something you wanted to do.
Play Batman?
Yeah.
It was never something that I was interested in through seeing the TV series or seeing the movies. It was something I became interested in through reading the graphic novels, not until about the year 2000. I was lent a graphic novel called Arkham Asylum, and that was the first time that I ever saw a Batman that I personally found to be a truly fascinating character.
What was fascinating?
What I realized is that the portrayals that I'd seen of Batman previously were spoofs of what Batman was intended to be. And that Bob Kane, when he first created Batman back in 1939, he wanted him to be a dark and threatening character. And then there was a kind of a revival with Frank Miller doing Batman Year One. And then there are other great graphic novels like Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb's Dark Victory and Long Halloween. And it's a very, very different darker look at the character, and it was the first time that I thought this is something I really would love to get a chance to portray.
You don't mind playing dark characters?
No, and I
kind of like it, don't you?
I like to say that I'm fascinated with obsessive characters more so than dark characters, you know. And I think certainly Bruce Wayne is obsessive.
Yeah, how is he dark?
He's dark in that he's driven by very negative emotions. You know, his cause comes from a promise he makes to his parents after their murder. Yeah. To rid the city of the evil that took their lives, and a great sense of guilt that he was in some way responsible for their deaths, because it was his inability to control his own fears, which were bats, and which he was seeing in this opera that they went to see, and he had to leave because he was too scared, and consequently his parents were murdered in the alleyway by the site. So there's a great sense of, if he had been able to control his fear, that never would have happened.
So he's obsessed and
he's obsessed. He has a great deal of burden on him, a great burden of guilt, and a great thirst for revenge as well. You know, I see him as being a very dark and as the Batman, and I kind of like calling him a creature, that he's virtually demonic, you know, in his rage, but with the great philanthropy of his father, you know, talking in his ear all the time, reining him in and stopping him from going too far and becoming a force of great destruction, which he's capable of.
Do you go back and look at all the other Batmans, or did you studiously avoid them?
I respectfully ignored them. You know, this, as the title suggests, Batman Begins. It's not Batman number 5. It's the Genesis story. We were reinventing the whole lore, and so I didn't wish to steal anything or to repeat any of the previous performances that I'd seen.
What we have here is 2 Brits restoring the franchise, do we not?
Well, in a way, a lot of Brits actually, because we shot the film in England, so the whole crew was, most of the crew was British for those sections of the film. But I'm actually half American, half English.
Plus Liam.
Plus Liam. Well, Liam, I know he wouldn't want to be called a Brit.
No, I know he wouldn't, but he's of the islands.
Absolutely. No, I wouldn't call him that.
Be called a Brit. The last thing.
Not within punching distance,
Yeah, exactly.
No, Michael Caine, absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's Caine.
Tom Wilkinson. There's a great...
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. God.
Great pool of English talent, certainly, or international talent.
And how did that happen?
It's really by accident. I mean, honestly, maybe as somebody who's English, I'm more open to more international casting, but truthfully, we just went after the best people for the roles, and it sort of just wound up that way.
Now, what's the story here?
Well, we're taking on the story that hasn't been told before, and that's the origin story. It's the idea of how and why Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. It's never been addressed before on screen, and even in the comics, there isn't really one definitive account of it. It's always been treated in kind of flashback and montage and reference to backstory. So we were able to really try and tell a story that's never been told before.
All right, take a look at this. This is from Henri Ducart, who Liam Neeson plays, visits Bruce Wayne to give him some advice on fighting criminals. Here it is.
Are you so desperate to fight criminals that you lock yourself in to take them on one at a time?
Actually, there were 7 of them.
I counted 6, Mr. Wayne.
How do you know my name?
The world is too small for someone like Bruce Wayne to disappear, no matter how deep he chooses to sink.
Who are you?
My name is merely Ducard, but I speak for Raz Al Ghul, a man greatly feared by the criminal underworld.
The vigilantes.
No. The vigilante is just a man lost in the scramble for his own gratification. He can be destroyed or locked up. But if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely.
Which is?
A legend, Mr. Wayne.
What did you feel was your obligation to the franchise, other than make a good movie?
I didn't think so much of an obligation to the franchise as to the character. He's a beloved, enduring American icon, and my primary obligation was to look at the history of that character, 66 years of that history, and draw from that, distill from that the essence of what makes that legend. That really was the primary obligation. And what I wanted to do was do something that I'd never seen before, which is to take on this superhero story. And he's a superhero who has no superpowers. He's the most human of all superheroes. He is just a man with incredible self-discipline and dedication. And then that leads me to think that you can tell the story in a realistic fashion. You can ground it with the textures and so forth of the real world, and in that way, hopefully, really take the audience on this journey with this character as he becomes Batman.
And for you, I mean, how did you?
I felt that through my discovery of the graphic novels that I'm being amazed that he had never been portrayed in that way before, because to me that was just by far the most interesting portrayal
the
and depiction
darkness
I've
that
seen.
you hadn't seen before.
Just much more psychologically interesting and by far the most kind of badass, but also just much more intriguing superhero than anybody any of the others. And so my hope was that we would be able to create the kind of defining portrayal of Batman in much the same way that I see like Christopher Reeves did it with Superman, and I think that that's a tough act to follow, whereas I felt like it had a lot more room to maneuver because the character had never been approached from such a human and a deep point of view before.
Do you think in terms of career when you choose these things at all?
I think that my initial interest was that I really only wanted to play Batman if it was going to be something very different from what I'd seen before.
Right.
That I had no interest in playing it otherwise. When Chris, became the director, it became very clear because I would say that respectfully towards Chris and myself that we weren't exactly the predictable choices to make a movie of this magnitude. And I think that's a real saving grace to it because Chris brought a real sense from his more independent background of maintaining a great intimacy and not losing the storytelling and not making it impersonal at all.
Michael Caine plays
Alfred, who is familiar to moviegoers as the family butler, but perhaps not quite so familiar to moviegoers as really the surrogate father. He takes over being Bruce's father effectively after his parents are killed.
And here's a conversation between the two of them when Batman talks about coming back to save the city or to return to fight corruption.
Are you coming back to Gotham for long, sir?
As long as it takes. I'm going to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt.
In the Depression, your father nearly bankrupted Wayne Enterprises combating poverty. He believed that his example would inspire the wealthy of Gotham to save their city.
Did it?
In a way, their murder shocked the wealthy and the powerful into action.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
I assume that as you're taking on the underworld, this symbol is a persona to protect those you care about from reprisals.
You're thinking about Rachel?
Actually, sir, I was thinking of myself.
Batman's primary weapon is fear?
Yes.
Fear?
Yes. Using his own fear against his opponents.
His fear?
His fear originally of bats. His fear of I feel very much as well of disappointing himself and of not being able to control his fear, and very much the theme is about taking grief and taking very negative emotions of anger, etc., and being able to find a way to use them constructively.
How much weight did you lose for The Machinist?
63 pounds.
And how much did you gain back for this?
I went up 100 pounds, and then I arrived in England. Chris realized, because we hadn't seen each other for a few months, Chris realized I'd kind of overdone it.
Yeah, it was too big.
When I walked
wasn't going
down
to fit in the suit.
I walked down the hallway towards him. I had a big beard and long hair, and he didn't even recognize me. And I kind of went, "Oh my God, you look like Grizzly Adams." And then a couple of the crew members who I had worked with before saw me and said, "Are we doing Fat Man here? Are we doing
Not Batman at all."
And so I had to suddenly go on a lean-out diet.
No, wait, but let me understand the sequence.
What
What was the timeline? I mean, first you did The Machinist.
First I did The
and
Machinist,
you dropped 63 pounds.
Yeah.
And then you went ballooned back up 100.
Yeah,
Just for what reason?
Within about 5 months. Just because I loved the Machinist script very much. I felt like it was an essential thing to have him be incredibly skinny. I probably, in retrospect, look at it and think, I got a little bit too obsessed with it. It was maybe not that
now,
necessary.
can we explain that? I mean, is that just your nature to be that obsessed?
I think it's an interesting thing that whatever state you find yourself in, you tend to accept as being the norm. And so despite the fact that to everybody else's eyes, I was dangerously skinny and possibly, potentially doing myself great damage, I was actually saying, I think I failed to achieve the look I was originally going for. Looking back in retrospect, I think that's nuts. I think that I became incredibly obsessive, and what the hell was I thinking, about it?
Now I know why you chose him.
Exactly. It's all there.
It's all right there, isn't it?
All right there. Yeah. No, I mean, obsessiveness and a dedication to a purpose, a sense of purpose, is exactly what Bruce Wayne has to have. And because we're telling the story, we're trying to tell the story realistically, you've got to have somebody like Christian who the audience can look into his eyes and they can see that absolute sense of purpose.
Yeah, and he clearly has that when he walks, when he gets up in the morning.
Exactly.
Well, in Psycho, the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Although,
Same thing.
although complete soullessness.
Yeah, that's true. There was nothing
Patrick
there.
Bateman. No.
Nothing. Yeah. All right, let me show one more clip here. This we want to get Morgan Freeman in here. He plays Lucius Fox, and he introduces Bruce to the future Batmobile. Here it is.
Mr. Fox. Yes, sir.
If you're uncomfortable.
Mr. Wayne, you don't want to tell me exactly what you're doing when I'm asked. I don't have to lie. But don't think of me as an idiot.
Fair enough. What's that?
On the tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that. She was built as a bridging vehicle. During combat, 2 of these would jump over a river towing cables. And over here on the throttle, flip that open and throttle up. This will boost you into a rampless jump. Not now! Not now, sir. We never could get the damn bridge to work, but this baby works just fine. So what do you think?
Does it come in black?
Who wrote the script?
Myself and David Goyer. David Goyer is a comic book expert and kindly set me on the right footing with the elements of the mythology we had to be.
Okay, the line doesn't come in black. Was your line or his line or both?
I think it was a mutual effort, actually. We threw around a lot of what we thought would be amusing approaches to just getting a little bit of humor into what is otherwise a very serious story.
And how many times did you want to bring a little humor into it?
We wanted to have just enough to offset the darkest elements, really, and almost enhance them. I mean, I think there's always in literature and the history of storytelling, really, there's a great value to having a little bit of a balance between a lightness, lightening the tragedy.
A delicate stroke,
Yeah. So with actors like Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine, we had a great opportunity to put a bit of human warmth around Bruce, because whilst Christian is able to do some, I think, very funny stuff in the film, there's a limit to how warm Bruce can be, because he is, in a sense, damaged goods. He's an extraordinarily intense individual, very serious.
Would you do this again?
I've enjoyed it tremendously, actually. I mean, it's taken a long time. It's 2.5 years of work, and it's on a huge scale, and it's quite an effort. But I very much enjoyed it, and I like the characters. I've enjoyed being able to work with such great people and on such a great
In the end, that's what
canvas.
makes it work, isn't it? I mean, you know, if you
it's all about the human
storytelling
factor.
and good storytellers.
Yeah, and good people to work with. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He didn't give a complete answer there, and I'm always bugging him for a complete
What the answer is?
about is he going to be on board if we do a second
Yeah,
one?
are you going to be on board or not?
Absolutely. Hey, listen, he ain't going to give you an answer. I've been asking
Why
him
is
for
this
weeks.
hard?
I've been
I'm
bugging
good
him.
at dance training.
No, why is this hard? I mean, you know, you liked it? You get to work with good actors? I mean...
You know what, Todd? I don't want to jinx this one. I put everything I can into this film, and I want to see what people are going to think of this one. And I'm very proud of the film and the work that everybody's done in the film, and I'm a little bit nervous and very excited to know what people are going to
see how, you know, launch this baby and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
From my point of view, I think that Chris did just such a great job with it that I think if people embrace the style in which he's made this movie and the way that we've depicted Batman, that it would be a wonderful thing to reprise the role and take it further. And I just wouldn't want to see anybody else become involved and kind of mess up what Chris has done so brilliantly, to start with.
There you go. But you sound like you're on board if they want to go, or did they make you sign some kind of contract?
It was a bit like that. It was one of those deals. You sign on for one, we've got you for a couple.
Yeah.
But like I said, that doesn't worry me, because as I see it, and I don't think I'm being naive in saying this, that if people like what we've done, then I'm more than happy to reprise it, and I would really look forward to it. And if they don't like what we've done, I'm sure they're not going to be asking me back anyway.
Yeah.
So I feel in a reasonably safe position.
When you look at the variety of choices you have made, are you pretty much where you'd like to be in terms of the kinds of roles that have, in terms of what it means to be an actor?
I think I'm finding myself in a very fortunate position right now, I got to work with Chris, and then following working with Chris, I got to work with Terrence Malick, who I think is one of the finest directors ever.
Great sense of cinematography.
And then I followed it up with a very, very small independent movie, directed by the writer of Training Day.
Right.
And now I'm about to start working with Werner Herzog, who's a favorite of mine, on a project that we've been trying to put together for a couple of years.
So you got plenty of work.
Plenty of work, but very much work that I'm very passionate
Stuff you really want
about.
to do.
Yeah.
Much success on this. Great
Thank
to
you
have you
very
at the
much.
table again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Whatever it takes to make you do another one. You'll tell us when you decide.
Exactly.
All right. Now, Batman Begins, it's a Warner Brothers film, as you might know, and it begins Friday, June 15th. Friday, June 15th at theaters near where you are.
I would like to know what makes Batman Begins different from the franchises that we're used to see over and over again.
Right, credibility, I think. We're really basing it in reality. We're making everything practical. We're giving answers to everything as well. We're not just accepting that Batman exists and you get these strange villains running around Gotham. We wanted Gotham to be a real city that people would recognize, and we give answers in Batman Begins to how he becomes Batman, why he becomes Batman. It's about Bruce Wayne more than anybody else. I mean, the creature of Batman is not even created until about halfway through. But then even with the villains as well, you have every explanation of why they behave the way they do and how they can end up looking the way they do as well. And people have never given those answers. There's always just been an assumption. He feels a great need for revenge. As anybody would, when their parents have been killed. But he was unable to get the satisfaction of vengeance upon the actual perpetrator. But I envisioned that every criminal he comes across, he cannot help but see them as his parents' murderer. And it's a continuing debate that rages within him of the fastest way to get results in cleansing the city of evil, but of the danger of becoming the very beast that you're trying to fight in doing so. So it's a continuing question of what is revenge and what is justice and what is the difference between the two.
Christopher Nolan has a very interesting career and is a very known blockbuster director. But in a way, he's done a wonderful job. I would like to know, how was it for you working with him, and what do you think he brought into this project as a co-writer?
I think that what he brought to it was the very fact that he has not done a movie like this before. So it was new blood. He approached it from a more independent filmmaking viewpoint. It meant that, first of all, there was a much more personal feel on the set than I think you usually get with a 7-month schedule, mega money movie like this, because that's just the way that he's used to working. It also means that he didn't skip over any details, which you so often get in big movie blockbuster things. They just say, oh, nobody will ever notice. He cared about every little detail. He wanted to answer every little piece. And that really notices. You know, like you said, most blockbuster movies, they don't satisfy completely. This one, I think, is going to satisfy the real hardcore fans who have been kind of waiting to see a dark and truthful depiction and defining depiction of Batman, but it also satisfies people who appreciate good movies and good stories, because it has both. You know, there's no need to have a dumb movie just because it's a big summer blockbuster.
I would like to know if it was complicated to understand the two worlds, the conventional world of Bruce Wayne and then the more science fictional world of Batman, and you as an actor going back and forth from one to another.
Well, no, because the way that Chris approached it was he created this world that could be, on the one hand, realistic, but also embrace the fantastic as well. You know, I mean, it has to be somewhat fantastical because we're dealing with a superhero here. But in basing that in good grounding and good practical history, it was very easy to incorporate, you know, the two. And essentially, you know, you have the benefit as well of, with this superhero, he is just a man. You know, you're not dealing with some magical person who comes from a different planet. You're dealing with somebody who was born on this earth and is very human and all too human, you know, and is driven by very negative emotions, is driven by a great deal of rage and anger, but also an inherited philanthropy, you know, from his father. And so for me, it was kind of almost a therapy that Bruce Wayne goes through in donning this bat suit, where he's able to channel his rage completely when he becomes this other character and he becomes this demon. And he does that so that, yes, he can actually achieve results within Gotham in intimidating criminals, but also so that as Bruce Wayne, he's able to function, you know, that he's not so full of hatred that he can't function in society.
So how are things? Good?
Huh?
You doing well?
Yeah.
Good. You're great in this.
Speedy?
This is such a... Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, I've seen it. Actually, it's one of the few movies it's one of the few movies I've been in. I saw it last week, and I'm going to see it Monday at the premiere. I'm actually excited to go see it again. I want to go see it again.
You have to see it twice.
You got to see it twice, but you know that's rare when you're in something to want to do it. I mean, some films I've made I've not even seen once. So there we are. I'll see this one twice.
Well, go check them out, because I have to say, all your films are really good. So
well, they're all right.
Totally check them.
Some of them.
99%.
Yeah, some of them.
First off, Gary, what are your earliest memories of Batman?
Comic book. Just a comic book, I think.
Were you a fan?
I wasn't a fan of comic books. I wasn't like some kids collect Superman, and I can't say I was a fan of comic books, but I did read them. They were around. I mean, it's like, who doesn't know Batman? It's but that's when I first kind of was aware of the I used to I think I used to draw him as a kid, because it's a nice shape with the ears. And then I saw the series in the 60s, and that was, you know, same bat time, same bat channel.
We were all there.
Before VCRs, so you had to stay in and watch it. And then I was reminded today, I had the Corgi car from the series. Like a flood of the memory of which I'd forgotten, with the little blade coming out. There was a little blade that came out, and when you moved the wheels, the fire at the back, you know. God.
So you get the script. Christopher sent you the
Yeah,
script, which
well-
is, you know, outstanding. But what was it about it that you connected with?
Well, I met Chris before I read the script. So I really connected with the vision that the pitch that was fantastic. How he wanted to sort of approach it and how he saw it. And I came away thinking, well, that's pretty unusual. That's pretty different. And plus the fact I liked him as a filmmaker. So you're going to figure action, big movie directed by this guy. It's going to be interesting.
And it's cool that there's a backstory finally to Batman.
Thank God, you know, it answers all those questions that we've all wanted to know. You know, where's that suit come from? How did he get that car? You know, and these are very. You don't have to make such a huge imaginative leap here. He's not asking you to go. You don't have to work very hard, do you? Once you know what I mean. Once you accept, okay, it's Batman, and we're in that world. A lot of it makes sense. There's a lot of logic in it.
Exactly.
That you can really, that you buy. You go, hey, you know, it's an army assault vehicle. Paint it black. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, most of your scenes, of course, are with Christian. Great interaction between the two of you, but I was wondering, when you started to work with this young man, I mean, what were your impressions of him? What impressed you most, and why is he the perfect Batman?
Well, it's a hard one, because it's... I'm a fan. I like his work. I think that I'm impressed by his commitment to the work, physically. I mean, how he looks in Batman compared to how he looked in The Machinist. You know, that's great.
That's dedication.
It's dedication, you know what I mean? And that has, you know, you got to tip your hat to that. He does look fabulous as Batman, doesn't he? You know.
And what did you think when you saw him in that suit for the first time?
Well, I only really ever saw him in the suit. He was off in a room. It was all tented off. It was all a secret. So I only met the first time I met Christian was when he was dressed as Batman. Oh. So it's pretty impressive. And even though you're in the movie and you're working on the movie, you get there and you go, "Where's the bat suit? Where's the bat suit? I want to look at the bat suit. How does he look? You know, is it good? Is it, you know?"
And not only the bat suit, but Gary, you get to drive that car.
Well, I don't get to drive the car. It's just the magic of cinema. Unfortunately, I've got to.
Well, don't ruin it for all of us. No, see, just being around that car. Come on.
Oh, being around the car is. Even the little thing I was in, you know, with the men out of shot, wobbling it. And, you know, I mean, there's a camera through the thing, and there's Chris Nolan standing about 3 feet away from me. And he goes, "And now you're hitting all the cars on the street." Oh, okay.
But it looks good.
Yeah, you know, put some music on it, put some sound effects on it, bit of sweat on my forehead. You know, more sweat.
Detective Gordon, nice guy, pretty good guy. A little bit of a change for you. How do you like playing a good guy?
Well, I've played some good guys.
Not for a little while, though.
You know, yeah, Harry Potter.
I know, but we'll get to Harry Potter in a second. But this guy's, was a bit of a challenge, being, you know, it's kind of a straight-laced detective, and did you find it a little bit challenging playing a guy like that?
No, because it's that's more who I am.
You're letting in the real Gary Oldman.
You know, I didn't have to do very much.
But did you enjoy it? You must have had a ton of fun working on this movie.
Yeah. I mean, the most exhausting thing was the travel. Back and forth. I think that was the most challenging thing. The flying. But apart from that, the experience of actually working with all these people and, you know, although I never got to work with Michael and then Liam and, you know, but, yeah, it's nice being commissioner. Well, Lieutenant Gordon, I'm sure I'll be promoted.
I was going to say,
I'm confident that I will be.
Are you up for a few more of these? Because there's no doubt there will be.
I'm up for the next one. Yeah. Which I'm looking forward to. I hope Chris is going to do it. I'd love... I don't know if he's, at the moment, convinced he's going to, but I hope someone can talk him into it or throw a lot of money at him or something, you know. Got to get him somehow, haven't you?
We'll get him there. Congratulations. And I look forward to seeing you in the next Harry Potter movie. My boys, thank you. You are fantastic in that film. So we look forward to the next one.
Well, I'll disappoint them because I'm a tiny, tiny little part in the next one as just an embers of fire. But if I do 5, I'm featured in 5, so...
And we have to pay you big bucks for that.
And they have to... Oh, they'll have to pay me big bucks for that. You don't know. You don't know.
Liam, I would like to know from all the offers that you get, why did you choose to do this one, Batman Begins?
I love the script. For me, it's always about the script. And I wasn't exactly a big Batman fan. I haven't seen the previous films, but this material was, I thought, just exceptional. It convincingly tells the story of how the character Bruce Wayne would end up dressing up in a weird, funky costume to fight crime. And he tells it in Chris Nolan tells it in this very, very rich and very textured way. He's, yeah, every director's different, it's true, but Christopher has he's quite laid back. He's meticulously prepared, which is very important. And he loves your input. He loves the actor's input, you know. And unlike a lot of directors, he stands beside the camera when they're shooting a scene. He's not in some back room watching a bank of monitors. So I like that a lot. He's watching you with the naked eye, you know, because I think he sees something very special in him. And I think he sees someone who's prepared to go through anything to get what he wants. And that's an energy he spots, and he feels he can use that and train it and make it more special. Yeah, I think so. I think he's certainly a man of many cultures and quite mysterious, I think. He's gone through a journey himself, an emotional journey. Something has happened to him. But he's come out the other side incredibly disciplined, I think. I know, well, I wouldn't have been in it for a start, you know, that's for sure. But, I mean, Chris has got together this wonderful cast of actors, you know. It was just a joy to do it. I unfortunately didn't have any scenes with Michael Caine or Morgan Freeman or Gary Oldman for that matter, but most of my stuff was with Christian. But we were in Iceland, yeah, for about 10 days, I think, at the start of the shoot. And Christian and I have this fight on this ice floe that was shot beside this huge glacier that kept moving every 5 or 6 inches every day. So it was quite intimidating and a little bit scary. Oh, I think you could read that into it, most certainly, sure. And you know, the decadence of potential decadence of these multi-corporations that we read about every day, of various forms of corruption happening inside them, and insider trading and all the rest of it. And there certainly is a relevance, I think. It's good to have heroes, isn't it? It's good to have heroes, but we can be inspired by them and be sort of led by them, but ultimately it's up to us to change society, you know. But it's nice to fantasize, and still trying to find out the reason for that. I just loved doing it, and especially in theatre work. I loved saying somebody else's words on a stage and being watched. There was something very, there was a great catharsis about it. Well, if it leads to other work, you know, which it's you know, that's where recognition comes in, especially in a town like Hollywood, you know, which is the center of the English-speaking cinema. So it can help, you know. No, not a role model, no, but I think, well, we all have to be responsible for our behavior, you know. But I don't get bugged that way by the public. It's never been an issue in my life, you know, and I've certainly never courted it. I do a lot of work with UNICEF in Ireland, and in fact, I'm going to Africa this August with Sarah Jessica Parker and myself to see firsthand what UNICEF are doing as regards AIDS, HIV transmission from mothers to their infants. And so yes, if your celebrity status can bring attention and awareness to causes like that, then they seem to be taking risks. Yeah, I mean, it's like they certainly know talent when they meet it. And, you know, when I remember hearing about Christopher Nolan when Memento came out, and then seeing the film and thought, well, this director, you know, every studio should be after this man, as indeed they were, you know, because they were so knocked out by this very, very clever film. And I think there is a sense too, if the studios want to recreate or want to get back to when those great films that were made in, like, say, the 1970s, you know, that was the golden era, I feel. And I do sense they want to experiment with talent that is as rich as now as those bunch of directors that came up in the 70s, you know. Scorsese, Coppola, Sidney Lumet was making great movies. So I think they are taking risks. Yeah, they are.
The film opened to generally favourable reviews, with mostly Christian Bale receiving acclaim for his performance.
People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible.
Millionaire playboy Bruce Wayne, who has been promoted to billionaire in this film, has traveled the world, and now he decides to return to Gotham City in that early scene from Batman Begins. It opens in 2 weeks. This is an early review. That is Christian Bale as Wayne and Michael Caine as the loyal family butler Alfred. And to get straight to the point, Batman Begins is the 5th Batman movie, but the first one to get it right, to get it absolutely right. Those are Liam Neeson and Ken Watanabe, who trained Bruce Wayne in martial arts in a mysterious eastern country that is never quite named. Back in Gotham City, the plot involves a scheme to drive all of the citizens mad. And on the plot is a shrink, played by Cillian Murphy, who doubles as the Scarecrow. Katie Holmes is an assistant DA who begins to suspect that this shrink is not on the level. Morgan Freeman plays the scientific mastermind of Bruce Wayne's family company. exiled to the basement where he unveils some secret projects he's got in development. Gary Oldman plays the good cop Lieutenant Gordon, who in Batman Begins works hard, and if he sticks with Batman and continues to do the right thing, someday he might become Commissioner Gordon. There's an incredible chase scene involving the Batmobile in about half of Gotham City, which was, in this case, Chicago. Who is this guy? This is the darkest of the Batman movies and the most engrossing, with a hero who is learning from his mistakes and a villain who poisons the water system with an insanity drug and then plans to vaporize the water so all the citizens will breathe the drug and go mad. Now there is an evil scheme for you. Last year, Spider-Man 2 got Spider-Man right, and this year, Batman Begins is the Batman movie I've been waiting for and hoping for. It's one of the year's best films.
It absolutely is, and I love the first film that Tim Burton directed, but I still say this is the best Batman movie ever by far. Christopher Nolan, who directed Memento and Insomnia, has directed this film and has put a great stamp on it. It is dark. This Batman character, Christian Bale, is terrific, and then you have all of these great actors, Roger, Michael Caine and Liam Neeson and Morgan Freeman, adding such weight to all of those scenes, and they play it straight. No one's winking at the camera saying, oh, we're doing a comic book here. They're in this world.
And what's interesting is I really got involved in the story. I mean, it wasn't just, oh, it's Batman and here's the villain acting out and here's the weird, bizarre scheme. It was a fascinating story. Then the special effects. They take the city of Chicago and they add a whole layer of special effects.
Looks
These
great.
elevated trains, the underground, the lower level of some of the roads. Wayne Building is actually the Board of Trade. Without getting into a Chicago travelogue, they really make the city look
They have
big
created
and
this
enormous
whole
and
city
menacing.
of Gotham. Yeah, it's wonderfully done. And Batman has always been the most interesting character. And the other movies got so bogged down with the villain of the week type stuff, the cartoonish villain. Here we have about 4 or 5 bad guys. Actually, there's several different things going on, but it's really more about Bruce Wayne and his alter ego, or is it Batman and his alter ego, Bruce Wayne?
And Michael Caine, really interesting as the guy who treasures the Wayne family legacy and wants to make sure this kid doesn't screw up.
All of that stuff is really well done.
The big movie of the week, one would imagine, as far as the budget is concerned, and the promotion budget, seems to be Christian Bale's appearance as Batman.
Well, the budget looks like it's around the $140 million mark, which is fairly astonishing. Most sort of blockbusters will now cost upwards of $100 million, but $140 million is fairly big. Both that and War of the Worlds are in that kind of area. So, a huge amount of money being spent. If you're a follower of the Batman screen franchise, you will know that Joel Schumacher effectively killed it stone dead, because he had the one episode with Val Kilmer. Started off with Tim Burton. Tim Burton said, I'm going to do everything very gothic, very dark, going to refer to Frank Miller and all that sort of stuff, and then made Batman and Batman Returns, both of which I thought were actually fairly dull. I never really understood why those movies weren't as good as they were. Then along came Joel Schumacher. He did one episode with Val Kilmer, which was quite good fun, largely because the film consisted entirely of the shots of people's bottoms clad in rubber. I mean, it was just this incredibly sort of fetishistic movie in which people clipped things on and clipped things an awful lot, and Val Kilmer said that line about it must be the car, chicks love the car. But Val Kilmer was his usual terrible self.
Which was he's my new friend, because he was in the other day.
Well,
which was the George Clooney one?
That was the one afterwards, which was Batman and Robin, which was the one which effectively sank the franchise. It was the one in which Arnold Schwarzenegger said, oh, I'm Mr. Freeze, and you won't put the cool on. And it was kicked around town by absolutely everybody. In fact, I have to say, I didn't hate it as much as anybody else, because I thought it was just pantomime nonsense, but it was really, really reviled. So then the franchise kind of went into death throes and stopped. Now revised, Christopher Nolan at the helm. Christopher Nolan, proper director, made films like Memento and the remake of Insomnia. So he's a proper, intelligent, smart director. Batman Begins obviously goes right back to the origins, effectively wipes the slate clean, doesn't attempt to map onto the Burton versions or the Schumacher versions, takes the story of Batman, of young Bruce Wayne, kind of rewrites the traumas of this young man brought up in incredible wealth, loses his parents because they're killed in a mugging in Gotham City, and therefore falls into the criminal underworld in order to discover how the criminal mind works. Goes off and has a bit of Zen training at the hands of Liam Neeson, who reappears later on in the movie in a sort of strange twist of the narrative, and then comes back to Gotham City, meets top crime boss, played by your very new friend Tom Wilkinson, who was in recently.
That's right, yeah.
And is absolutely great. Anyway, it's much darker, it's much grittier, it's much tougher, it's much more realistic, and it is frankly much better than any of the Batman movies. So, the things that are great about Batman Begins, firstly, it's a little independent, weird art movie trapped within the body of a $140 million blockbuster. So what we get is, we get an hour of character development, but really interesting character development taking place against spectacular backdrops, but character development nonetheless.
But so this is before he actually puts on any black leather at all?
Yeah, exactly. And all the stuff before Batman actually begins. You have the stuff about Bruce Wayne and the terrible guilt that he feels about the loss of his parents, the weird process that he goes through in descending into the criminal underworld. When we meet him, he's in prison, him then learning his martial arts skills at the hand of Liam Neeson, who again is a kind of Nietzschean character. On the one hand, you think he's very good, but in fact his good is very close to evil. By the time Bruce Wayne gets back to Gotham and has these conversations with these top-ranking criminals, he realizes that in fact the police and the criminals and the justice system are all very, very close together. Now, this is an idea which has long been embodied in the Batman comics, but has strangely been missing from the movies, because the movies have always attempted to play, I think, to a much more general audience. There is half an hour of stuff blowing up. There is half an hour of huge rocket-powered action, which, for my money, is the stuff that Christopher Nolan says, look, I've done the work, now I have to have the stuff to sell the movie. And it's interesting that when you see the trailer, it leans very heavily on the spectacle and obviously on the design. However, whereas Batman movies in the past have referred to films like Fritz Lang's Metropolis or Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, this is now very commonplace. I cannot remember a Batman movie that had a sequence that specifically referred to George Romero's Day of the Dead, and that was really impressive for me. There are moments of very sort of full-blooded horror. It's a 12A certificate. The BBFC keeps saying this. 12A certificate means 12-year-old, or if you think there's a very special circumstance, take somebody maybe younger. We are not talking about a young person's movie for two reasons. Firstly, because there is scary stuff in it. Cillian Murphy, the actor who I first saw in Disco Pigs, which I hated, and then he was in 28 Days Later, the Danny Boyle zombie movie. He plays a really, really creepy psychotherapist, psychiatrist, nutball character in this film, and he's really nasty and really edgy and really tough. But so there's scary stuff in it, but there's also a good hour of stuff which younger audiences, I think, simply won't get a handle on. For all the stuff that George Lucas talked about saying Star Wars 3, this is the dark one, this is the one that really does the business. No, it doesn't. Obviously, Star Wars 3 is a total load of old rubbish. There's no darkness in it at all. Anakin Skywalker gets a bit grumpy one day and goes, "Ooh, I think I might as well go over to the dark side." In this, we actually have something that approaches profound psychological development. Now, that said, of course it's a Batman movie, so of course there is the Batmobile, but the Batmobile is actually much...
a tank.
Well, it's a tank, exactly.
Tank.
It kind of makes sense, because what it is a military vehicle that's been developed by Wayne Enterprises and has therefore, been developed for a purpose other than for Michael Keaton or Val Kilmer to jump into so it looks sleek when you're running around Gotham City. There is a fantastic supporting cast, which includes people like Rutger Hauer. Would that we could see more of Rutger Hauer, because I really like him. Gary Oldman, who gets to deliver one of the best speeches in the movie when he starts talking to Batman. In the middle of all this stuff, in the middle of all this chaos, he has this brilliant speech in which he says all this is a war of escalation. We get semi-automatics, they get automatics. It's all going to hell in a handcart. And it's dealing with this very dark, very tough, very nihilistic stuff. Christian Bale is great. And Christian Bale, if you've seen American Psycho, there's an awful lot of comparison between what he does in American Psycho and what he does in Batman. He basically plays Batman in the way I think that Frank Miller reimagined Batman, as a psycho head case. It's too long, and the last half hour, which I think is there to sell the movie to the popcorn crowd, does get a little bit grating. But generally, it is every bit as good as you could possibly expect from a $140 million movie, and is by quite some distance the best Batman movie, and absolutely puts Star Wars back down in the ground where it belongs.
Owen says, saw Batman Begins last night and loved it. Christopher Nolan is a genius. The cast is superb. Hope George Clooney and Joel Schumacher watch it and weep.
Well, I'm sure they will, because Joel Schumacher apparently said to Woody Allen, having made Batman and Robin, he said, "It's terrible, I've made the worst movie of all time." And Woody Allen apparently replied, "No, you haven't. That would have been an achievement. You haven't even done that."
Nick in Leeds, Batman Begins is brilliant. Christopher Nolan has dug the franchise out of the grave it was sent to, thanks to Joel Schumacher's Forever and Robin. All that happens in those two films is just two major stars wearing stupid costumes and looking very silly.
Yes.
John in Cardiff, I need your help, Mark. My girlfriend has no interest in seeing Batman Begins. Hang on, wait. No. The original Burton movie she enjoyed mainly due to Keaton, Nicholson, Passenger and Burton's direction, but Begins the only draw for her is Gary Oldman and slightly Morgan Freeman. Please give me a few one-liners that will convince her that Batman Begins must be seen, and tonight. Otherwise, I'll be sneaking out on the weekend.
Okay, I think that that Christian Bale is a big draw, and interestingly enough, I was on the phone to the press officer from the British Board of Film Classification just before I came on. It's a very, very smart woman called Sue Clark, and I said, I just saw Batman. Did you see it? She said, yes, I saw it, and she liked it very much as well. And we had a little bit of a discussion about whether or not it plays to men as well as women, and we both agreed that it's completely universal, whereas I think the other movies were rather boysy.
John in Cardiff, I think that's part of your licence fee rebate there. You talked about Theramins earlier. How much do you think it would cost? And thank you to the people from Theramin World for all the info. How much do you, if you wanted an ether wave Theramin, how much do you think it would set you back?
£700-800?
$3,000.
Oh well.
If you want to, of course, make the opening sound for Good Vibrations, that was a.
Funnily enough, it wasn't. It was apparently it was an electric theremin in which you play on a flat piece of steel rather than on the point, rather than the thing that you point at. No, the name of the guy who played it on Good Vibrations is the name of the guy that I was trying to remember.
This from Terry in Portsmouth, taking my son and mates to watch Batman for a 10th birthday tomorrow.
Okay,
is that good or not?
Yeah, I figure. I mean, if they are, 10-year-olds, I think can just about manage it. If they go, there are some scary things in it, and I would say the biggest difficulty is that they have to have a big attention span because there are long sections of character dialogue all happening in beautiful settings, but it's quite dark and there's a long way before he gets to being Batman. But if they are advanced 10-year-olds, fine, make sure they're well supervised.
The first Spider-Man was a 12A. It was the first 12A that actually turned up. Is it on a par with that? I mean,
it's darker. It's darker. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first Spider-Man was 12A because there's a lot of kind of violence in it, but this is darker in theme and tone.
Ailsa in Manchester, was Batman on audition for James Bond, do you think, for Christian Bale?
No, he'd never play James Bond. I think he'd be completely the wrong person.
John says, saw Batman Begins last night. One question been bothering me since, whose idea was it to make Christian Bale talk like a wrestler as soon as he puts his costume on?
But it is true that whenever he puts the mask on, suddenly his voice goes down like that. But that's fine, it's Batman.
The DVD of Batman Begins was released on October 18th, 2005 in both single disc and 2-disc deluxe editions, and was also released on VHS in some countries.
Nice car.
You should see my other one. Nomex survival suit for advanced infantry. Gas-powered magnetic grapple gun.
What is that?
Back up.
Batman Begins. Look for it on DVD.
The score for Batman Begins was composed by Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. Nolan originally invited Zimmer to compose the music, and Zimmer asked Nolan if he could invite Howard to compose as well, as they had always planned a collaboration. Batman Begins is a stealth action-adventure game based on the film of the same name, exploring the first year of Batman's crusade against crime. It was released in June 2005 for the Game Boy Advance, GameCube, PlayStation 2 and Xbox. The game received mixed reviews upon release.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
So what do you think? Does it come in black?
A city gripped by darkness, shrouded in danger. Something is watching from the shadows, stalking its prey, waiting to strike. Darkness is your ally. He's your weapon. Batman Begins. Coming June 15th. Rated T for teen. EA Games.
Challenge everything.
Thematically, what the game is about is fear, and as Batman instills fear in his enemies, he can beat them.
His ability to beat up the guys is affected by how scared the guys are of him before he enters the scene.
Oh, okay, so all about intimidation.
You know what I want. The more he's intimidated, the less Batman has to do.
I like that, yeah.
If you know Christian Bale's work, and what's so great about him is he's just a spectacular actor. By the same token, he's got a big presence.
So, tell me about the rabbits.
Can you be more threatening?
Tell me about the rabbits.
You want Bruce Wayne as Bruce Wayne, and you want Bruce Wayne as Batman to also have a big presence. So Christian Bale's perfect from that standpoint, and also we had a lot of spectacular actors besides Christian.
Computers never came into my generation. My generation, I never had a television until I was 35.
We have a computer in our house, and I know what it looks like. And I know which room it's in.
I'm still trying to get email on mine. My wife has to do that.
Well, I'm a big gamer, so it was a huge bonus of being involved in this.
It's great because they actually take a while to kill, you know?
The game looks fantastic.
It looks awesome.
It's very stark and very strong and very steely.
The colours and the textures, the sort of atmosphere of the city was definitely there, and also Arkham, where most of my stuff takes place in the movie. It looks suitably terrifying.
It was remarkably like the film.
Looks like you could spend a lot of time playing around with that one.
Now, who is that masked man? I wanted to thank him.
Unlike the rest of them, it's not a superhero. Batman's a regular person who just happens to have skills.
I was nearly killed by some maniac in black pajamas.
I've never done a voiceover for a game before, but it's remarkably simple because I've already rehearsed this part for 2.5 months on Batman. I've played the guy for so long, and you get the voice back immediately. If I may, sir, that sounds remarkably like a gas leak.
A lot of the lines that we were doing today were lines from the movie, so you remember them.
He's here. The Batman.
The great thing is you don't have to lip sync to them. They lip sync to you, so that's the good bit.
I want my boat here, now. Get me the hell away from this disaster. If you're doing it in a film, you're matching it to your own lip movements.
Please! Somebody!
In a game, it's like inventing it for the first time.
Rachel can nail Falcone when I deliver him.
I play Rachel Doss, and I'm sort of the love interest of Bruce Wayne, Batman. Don't mess with me. Oh, that's what it is. I work in the DA's office, and I follow Batman around. If there was, I would be there. It's more challenging sometimes to do voiceovers because you're not on the set and you have to do all the imagining by yourself, and somebody's sort of telling you the situation and then, okay, say this line. Did you give my message to Detective Gordon? It was kind of exhausting. A lot of screaming and panting.
Can't wait to play it properly, finish it.
Will you send me a game?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So I can learn how to play it. I've got to get one of the things you play it on, haven't I?
Right.
I'm still trying to get my email.
The role of DC in a project like this is to connect the video game team with their creative imagination, with the movie team, and with the rich history of the character.
My interaction with the game designers has been a great collaboration. We've spent
many hours with them coming to visit us to talk about what the film is and what the game will be.
I think one of the key things that we were able to supply the game creators was access to every department head.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you.
You too. The game designers spent a long time on set with Wally Pfister, our DP, and with Nathan Crowley, our production designer.
They were able to see the designs, they were able to see the progress to production.
Gosh, that is brilliant.
It's good, isn't it?
That is just brilliant, isn't it?
So we couldn't have done that without the stuff that you gave us.
Exactly.
They build it off of those things.
And it does look similar to what we've been
It
doing.
really does.
Yeah.
No, it really does.
Well, that's good.
The game recreates the look of the film very, very well.
When it dealt with the backgrounds and the locations, the set design, and worked with Nathan Crowley.
I'm responsible for the entire look of the film, from sets to choosing locations with the director to designing the Batmobile, all the design elements.
The mood of the game seems to reflect what we're doing on the movie itself. The lighting of the interior environments and the sky and the look of the sets. The folks were very respectful to the color palette as well, which makes a big difference to us as filmmakers.
We wanted to make sure that the two worked hand in hand, and that experience has worked well.
The game is getting closer and closer to what we've designed.
I'm amazed at how much the technology allows the video game to capture as rich a feeling as film does.
I was amazed when I first saw bits of the game and how incredible the animation is and the movement of the Batman character. And it seems that that's been very respectful to what Paul Jennings has done in the fights he's designed in this film.
The game designers spent a long time talking to our stunt coordinator, Paul Jennings, in an attempt to sort of mirror the Batman's fighting style.
In terms of the actual combat and the fighting moves and the finishing moves that Batman uses in the game, they're very similar to what we use in the film. The difference is that in order for Batman to cover distances in the game between characters he's fighting, we've got more gymnastic elements and more kicking movement in order for him to be able to reach his opponents quickly. When Batman's in a situation, if he can headbutt someone, that's what he'll do.
No, I'm a hell of a lot worse.
If he can elbow someone, that's what he'll do. He'll nail the guy.
Almost every element of the game is drawn from the film, so we're really happy that the game looks as much like the film as it possibly could.
You know, I think it's a really enjoyable game, and I can't wait to play it from beginning to end.
This is the Batman that fans have been wanting, which is what's so cool about it. Chris Nolan has just done an incredible job of creating that dark version of the character and making the true vision of Batman that players have and that fans have come to expect. This is a return to Batman's roots, and that's really why it's so exciting just to be able to turn his vision of Batman into a game. In the film, Batman always is using fear as a weapon against his enemies. He scares them, and when he scares them, he weakens them, and that's when he goes in for the takedown. If you could somehow find a way to integrate fear as a weapon into a video game, it would be an incredibly cool gameplay mechanic. There's a reason that no one's ever tried this before, and it's because it's incredibly complex, and the animation and art demands are huge. Holy crap! What the hell was that? If you scare someone, it's all about the reaction shot. It's all about seeing them get scared. So the animation team did just an incredible job of building out some great facial animation and real character reaction shots when guys get scared.
My name's Rob Letts, and I'm the executive producer on Batman Begins at Electronic Arts. It's my job on the project to really coordinate all of the different teams to make sure everybody's coming together. Each day is completely different. One day I could be sitting in with the lead producer and the team and working on some animations, and then the next day I could be working with our partners at Warner Brothers to make sure that we're getting all of the elements from the filmmakers, movie clips, voiceovers from the major principal talent from the movie, and any kind of special effects sequences that we see, and we can kind of tie in with the game.
One of the things that he does in the film is he uses this gadget called the high-frequency transponder, which is basically a sonic device which he then attaches to an enemy, which calls the bats onto that enemy. So in the game, you're able to do this as well. When the enemy gets the bats stuck on him, he completely freaks out. His level of fear goes through the roof, and then he's basically extremely weakened at that point.
When we look at gadgets for a video game, we really try and come up with gadgets that can be used system-wide and not just gadgets that are going to be one-offs. We look for stuff that we can really build out throughout the whole game.
I've put a data tap on the system.
Like a machine hack tool that Batman can use to hack into machinery and then use that machinery for his advantage.
The security cameras could come in handy.
For all their CG shots in the film, they've been actually making LiDAR scans of things like the Batmobile, some of their sets. Once we get those scans in from the filmmakers, then we can actually use those to more closely match the sets that were built for the film. Ultimately, it's just going to make it more rewarding for the players, and when they see certain scenes in the movie, they'll be say, oh, okay, or they see a certain scene in the game, they'll make the connection, which is really cool.
I'm a kind of massive Batman fan, a complete Batman geek, and have been for many years. And I'm also like a really, really big fan of racing games. So for me, personally, the opportunity to kind of race the Batmobile through Gotham City at high speed at 150 miles an hour is just a dream come true.
As the filmmakers were shooting the film, the car really began to take on a life of its own, and we realized pretty early on that we had to make the Batmobile a key component of the game. Once we got the Batmobile working, and the special effects working, and the sound and the music, and car parts were flying here and there, and cars were getting sideswiped off the road and flipping up, that's the experience that people want with the Batmobile.
Like a cross between a tank and a Lamborghini, and it's just unbelievable.
I came to realize that I had been put in charge not of a fictional character, but of postmodern folklore. The character had to evolve and had to stay contemporary, yet stay true to his roots, to that essence that made the character popular back in 1939.
I found the Batman!
The dominant emotion that I'm writing for in the Batman game is fear. It's kind of one of the larger themes in the movie. I feel like most video games are this combination of fear and rage. And what we're sort of doing with Batman is he's actually the one who's frightening all of the other characters in the game.
So I had a number of very pleasant afternoons going over JT's scripts with him, talking about the characters, talking about the interpretations, talking about the mechanics of video games.
The game script is an expansion on the film script in a lot of ways of basically trying to turn plot points that were originally carried by dialogue into action. But the major beats of the movie are the same as the major beats of the game.
I've been away from video games for a decade. It's a long way from Super Mario. It's like looking at a movie. Arkham Asylum, for example. I don't think we ever quite managed to get that right in the comic books.
My favorite part of working on the game was probably directing the voice actors, because we got so much of the cast from the movie. So I mean, just working with like Michael Caine and Christian Bale and Katie Holmes and all of these people, they would come into the session, and I felt like professional and fine, and like we could like start the session. You're the one, so this is after you taser the killer. Basically the killer turns around to fight Batman, and you pull out the taser and shock him from behind. And then by like the end of it, I just that's awesome. And then the last thing, it's like completely became a geek through the course of the sessions.
No, please. Don't let him hurt me.
Michael Caine has such a distinctive approach to Alfred that I think is probably one of the stronger and more believable Alfreds. Like the things that he found in the Alfred character, I was really amazed with.
He does think he's quite comical, so he laughs at his own little funny bits.
Oh, yeah?
Like there'll be no one left conscious for the past phase.
Great. What he sort of brought to the dialogue, little tweaks here and there, and talking about what his character would actually do was kind of amazing.
Let me do it another way, huh? Let me see if this works. This is a very funny script that was written by an American. An American's idea of why an Englishman speaks is there's a line, make haste, which is very Shakespearean, but the butler would have just said, hurry up, so, that's it.
Writing for Christian Bale was good. I mean, he's obviously a great actor, and Batman's not the most eloquent guy, so a lot of it is in terms of like what his performance brings to what little he says.
You know who I am.
The Batman, please don't eat my soul.
That's a new one.
Knowing that there was somebody of his caliber who could actually do that, you know, lets me put a lot more trust into the performance.
One of the biggest challenges we had with Batman as a game was it wasn't enough to create a beautifully polished, fun game that follows the movie. We had to do something that players wanted to pick up the joystick and the controller over and over again.
The look and the feel of the game is going to be more realistic, more gritty, and I think it would be most appealing of all the Batman's films and games that have come before.
My role is to facilitate the relationship between the filmmakers and the game's creators and make sure the game's creators have access to all the film assets that they need.
At the beginning of the production, we spent a lot of time showing the game to the filmmakers. We sat down with them and we got their vision of how the film was going to be so that we could translate it into the game. And throughout production, we've shown them the game as it's been created.
The biggest contribution that they provide for us that's the most valuable is getting their take on the direction that they're going with the film. Because we want to make sure that we establish consistency, and we want to make sure that Batman Begins game continues to further that experience.
We couldn't have made the game the way that we have without their help, because they just gave us total access to the sets, to every aspect of the production that we could ever imagine.
The producers, Emma Thomas and Chuck Robin, fantastic in helping us. I mean, those guys were literally helping us treat this game like a mini movie.
We've just received the blueprints from the sets, the costume designs, the weapon designs, test footage of the Batmobile being driven before it even had a body on it. Amazing stuff, really.
This film has a really distinct feel, probably different from any Batman movie that there's been before, and I think it was essential to recreate that in the game, and I think that's really happened here.
We want any notions players have had of the past Batman, good or bad, want to sort of put them to the side, start from scratch, and here you are. The new Batman is in your hands.
Batman Begins is all about how Batman became Batman. And I think the audiences for both the Batman Begins game as well as the movie are going to have a different connection, more of a more real connection with the characters that are in the film, both good and bad.
Product, we wanted to really capture the essence and the personality of Batman himself.
You know who I am.
The Batman, please don't eat my soul.
That's something the fans demand of the film, and they demand that of the game.
Batman lives in Gotham City. Gotham City is a dark city. It's a city that, although has a lot of hope, has a lot of crime in it. So the look and feel of Batman's Gotham is this crime-ridden city that needs to be cleaned up, that needs to have an Avenger.
The Gotham in the film is very decaying, which is why Bruce Wayne wants to come back from his Playboy antics and save Gotham. It's really disgusting and full of trash and garbage at the bottom, and then as you work your way up higher and higher, it gets more elegant and nicer because the rich people live up at the top and the poor people live at the bottom. It's kind of a metaphor. The game is pretty vertical. Most games you run around in the horizontal plane, but the game you really are encouraged to go up to a high point and take an observation from above and then sort of survey your surroundings and then act on it. So the game's all about intimidation and fear. So you'll go up to a high point and maybe fire a batarang down at an enemy and scare the hell out of them so they don't know what's going on, and then you'll jump in and fight them.
Batman, he's here!
But Batman is the ultimate game character because he's a superhero, but he's not omnipotent. So, you know, you've got to play him, you've got to be good. He's got gadgets, he's got a car, he's got acrobatics, he's got martial arts, but he's still human. So he rides that fine line where it's a lot of fun to play because you know at any given time you can run into a foe or an obstacle greater than you. Yet, if you're really good at what you do, you'll overcome it.
Nobody! Tell Crane! What are you supposed to be? What the hell is the Batman?
Alfred, we've got arson.
I've alerted the fire department, sir. You should be able to find an exit through any of the...
Not until I find Crane.
From the streets of Gotham, it's the new Batman Begins Batmobile. You can experience the roar of the engine, high-tech armor, the strength of 6 mega wheels, and the force of dual hidden rocket launchers. This ultimate weapon on wheels is Batman's vehicle of choice for protecting the streets. Crime never wins when Batman begins. Batman Begins Batmobile vehicle. Fits 5-inch figure. Figure sold separately. The new Batman Begins PowerTech figures with light-up action have arrived. Take flight and unleash an arsenal of PowerTech firepower. Crime never wins when Batman begins. Batman Begins PowerTech figures with light-up action and Scarecrow figure. Each sold separately. Get ready for a bigger and badder Batmobile. But this time, it transforms into the huge Gotham City playset. With 9 battle action stations. Stop the runaway subway train. With an action zip line, you're ready to do some damage. And with a battle action ball, you can put criminals in their place. Crime never wins when Batman begins. Transforming Gotham City playset. Adults assemble batteries and 5-inch figures not included.